Greetings and welcome to Office Hours. If you are new here, you're in for a treat as we celebrate 1,000 episodes. That's right, 1,000 episodes since March of 2020. This community has been broadcasting live over the internet for an international conversation around tech, virtual events, and media. Now, today's going to be a little bit different as we spend 3 hours, the first 3 hours of our show celebrating, and then the party will be in the after hours as well. You'll find that we'll have co-hosts with me. And you know what? Let me bring up one of our anchors today. Bill, welcome. Happy 1,000 episode.
It is so cool to be here. And just being in the green room beforehand, seeing all the faces from all of these eras for the 2 years we've been doing this show has been magnificent. This is all about the people who have come and made this possible. And to celebrate them today, I'm just so looking forward to this.
And so we have a number of special guests. So we'll have different segments today. And you should be aware our producers who, of course, without this show, it would not be possible. There's some special tags that you can, when you post your question, make sure you use the tag and it will correspond to one of the segments. And then we also want to hear from you, all of your comments, and we're going to bring you in the broadcast today and share your comments with the audience. Super excited about that. And then we're doing this for 3 hours. So you want to stay tuned. And Bill, Mukana, for those people who are new here, what is Mukana?
Mukana is the process we use in the back end to get our questions filtered into the show. So if you've been around for any period of time, you'll know that you can go to this and there's a link given out at the start of the show every day where you can kind of sign into the Mukana process. Once you do that and get into that system, then your questions drive the show every single day. Today's no exception. So if you're in that system already, post your questions. And you will notice also today when you do so, there's a whole series of categories because we have 3 hours to fill. We also have like the remotes will have a little section. There's a section on the first hour, what we'll be talking about here. So make sure you tag your questions into the right section to help the back end people kind of sort everything and keep everything organized today.
So go ahead, post your questions as we get into this first panel, as we talk to some of the OGs and hear more of the origin stories of Office Hours. How did it begin? Where are we now? And some of the evolution. And of course, we want to start off with you, Alex Lindsay, founder, visionary.
Yay!
Yay! Happy 1,000 episode, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Look what you started.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I didn't quite think we would do 1,000 episodes in a row. I mean, one of the things that was funny about it is that I just felt like, well, I don't know how long this is going to last. COVID was going to last. So we should just do it every day because I'll feel bad if I did it every week and we only do 6 of them and then it's over, or it's 8 of them and it's over. So we should just do it every day. And I don't want to, I think that when I did the first one, I can't remember what day the first one was on, but it wasn't like on the weekend or anything. And I did it and I was like, well, maybe I'll do that tomorrow. And then I was like, well, I should do it through the weekend. There wasn't like a big plan there. I don't think I tell people, if you're going to do this again, I wouldn't do it. Do 7 days a week, but you can't stop now. So, I think that what we've seen is the incredible rate of growth. And that is because we're doing it every day. We're doing it 7 times faster than if we had done it every week. And we're doing it, 12 times faster than if we had done it every month, and if this was a quarterly thing, we're doing it a lot faster than that. And so as a result, we've evolved much faster than you would normally evolve. Even though it's been a long time, the level of change over the last 2.5 years is pretty amazing.
And Alex, can you take us to that first when you clicked the switch and you went live? What was going through your head?
I had no idea. I barely knew how to use Zoom. So the thing is, that was the funny thing is that there was a bunch of things converging on doing Office Hours. One was that I had done 1,000 virtual events, so I had already had some experience in the first 100 were not great. I mean, we did okay. And I was like, oh, everyone's going to go through that. And that's going to be horrible if everybody does that, because I really believe in virtual events. I believe in digital events. And I felt like, we can't have this be a failure. Like we can't have it, if everyone's just rolling 737s across the runway, constantly, which is what we saw with Hangouts. this is never going to take off and people will go right back to the old ways as soon as this ends. And so I was like, we have to figure out some way to help people, not do that. And I've talked about this in the past, but one of the things that really was weighing on me was when I was doing Hangouts, we were Google's white glove team. We wouldn't tell anybody anything because I had to make payroll. I had to keep all these people paid, and I didn't want to tell anyone how we did what we did. It was super secret. Like we just didn't let anybody, even people in our own teams, never knew all the pieces. Like we kept them in their little silos, and we understood how it all fit together, but no one else did. And it was really, and we pushed the outer envelope of everything that you could do there, but we wouldn't tell anyone how to do it. And everyone else was failing, and that damaged the entire ecosystem, which damaged us. And so I realized that we need a growing ecosystem. We need more and more people doing this. We need to build it out so that it becomes the normal thing. And then there's a place to, you grow a whole forest rather than trying to, hang on to one tree. And so anyway, we, so that was weighing on me. The other thing is that suddenly all these people were asking, we had Patreon and a bunch of other folks asking us to do Zoom calls, and I barely knew how to turn it on. Like Zoom was not the platform I used very much. And I was like, I got to figure this out. And I think even if you look at the very first one, I go, well, I might have a Zoom with up to 50 people soon. And I got to figure out how to make sure that it works. And so I was like, the best way to do that is just do something every day. And I can start to see how Zoom works, but literally it wasn't like I was a true believer in Zoom. I was just like, people are asking for this. I better figure it out. So I was hoping to show people things that we had already learned about virtual events. I was hoping to learn myself how to use Zoom, and put those together. And then, what happened after that. So that's when I started it. That was kind of the intention. When people started showing up, I just didn't expect the quality of the people who showed up. Like I thought, oh, well, we'll help people and everything else. And very quickly, it was much more interesting than I had planned. So suddenly there were people that were a lot smarter than me in different areas. And I started learning. I realized that every day I was coming, I was finishing up with more than I started with every single day. And I still feel that way. I still learn every single day after 1,000 days, and I've done most of them, more than half of them, and I feel like I learn something new every single day. And so anyway, so that was the beginning, and then it just started going. Like it was just an amazing group of people at the very beginning, amazing group of people now, and it's just been this incredible ride.
And there's a word that you use there, which we'll talk about more, but the learning that came out of this. And if memory serves me correct, Grant, were you one of the first people on Office Hours that joined?
Well, yeah, I think my claim to fame is I was the first to register for the Zoom meeting. And so Alex had done a few Ask Alex's, these little live streams where he was
10 people.
Messing around.
Like six or 10 people, because that was me playing with Hangouts before that, doing exactly the same thing I'm doing now. Anyway, go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, so those Hangouts, and then you were playing around with like the Makana, versions and things, and messing around with Q&A. And I was super interested. I mean, I'd heard of Alex through MacBreak Weekly and things, but I was interested in the live streaming element, and so I didn't want to miss when he would do these, because he'd just go on Twitter and say, okay, I'm doing another one now. And, you get no warning. And so I hunted around on Twitter and found a way to push notification, just for Alex. It was like a true fanboy that I would actually get a notification. And so that's what happened when this, sitting around at the start of COVID, and he said, let's try this thing. And so I went straight on, registered, and I was first to register. And I think I did probably 100 days straight or something with everyone, and which is a little tricky in Australia. Of course, there wasn't much else going on, but in that time. But it's 2 a.m. now, and it gets trickier and trickier at this time of the year. But it was just an amazing time, and so the journey that we've gone on, is spectacular. Yeah.
And you reinforced the international, the global side of this. And Leo Mindo, way over there across the pond, how did you get involved and hear about Office Hours, and where has it taken you?
Interesting question. Thank you. So I was involved in, or I'm still involved in, a lot of streaming for synagogues and churches. And I was on a show to do with one of the camera operators. And in there, I was, A. Mitchell's is the driving force for me. And he contacted me and said, you've got to join this thing called Office Hours, and you've got to go and see this thing that's happening. And I looked it up and I found it, and I was just hooked. And it would have been about 3 or 4 months into the Office Hours, so I missed the beginning. And it was just exactly what I needed to answer a million questions, some of which aren't the greatest questions in the world, but they were all answered. And it's been a real ride. And it's a great opportunity to get questions answered.
And George, I'll toss that to you to get your input, because I remember when I joined and just seeing your background change, and I was like, "Wait, what are those lights?" And I remember you were probably one of the first people I got a chance to speak with to just get some insights. I'm like, "Oh, I love that look." So if you can share more about your experience as one of the OGs.
Obviously, a lot of us follow Alex on Twitter, and once I ordered Office Hours, I came on. I think I'm not going to try to go too long, but I've been thinking about it a lot. And what has Office Hours given me personally is critical thinking and processes, right? Because I would never think that I would have a ATM Constellation 2ME in my office right now. And I was like, why am I going to get this? But I'm actually using it, and I'm using those inputs. Like right now, I'm looking at my multi-view or my prompter, and I have 4 feeds inside of it. And, that's all in about Guy thinking how can he get all of these, images up in his teleprompter, and it's just giving me critical thinking and just the ability to really expand myself outside of office hours and, think critically about how to do my job, routing. So it's a whole lot. I mean, I could go on, but it's, for me, processes, as Alex like to say, is giving me critical thinking about doing my job and putting together things that I would never thought of before.
And Richard?
Yeah, I suppose quite a lot of us, I heard about it from Mac Break Weekly when Alex kind of started mentioning it there. I think at the beginning it was a different time zone, which and apologies for all of our Australian cousins because now this is their time zone. But at the beginning in the UK it was like on 1 a.m., 3 a.m. and it was just a little bit too early for me at that stage. But when it's shifted time zone, then that's when I kind of started coming in and started watching, and watched for a wee while, then came onto the panel and tried to answer some questions in my field, and was a bit out of my depth in other areas, and just kind of to try and get involved. And it was a really interesting kind of just everything was closed, but yet this kind of pocket of activity and energy just popped into the world, and it was really exciting. I remember in the early days having to illegally screen record some of the Saturday sessions because they were too long, because my family would want me to mow the lawn or do something, so I just had to set up a Wirecast in the living room, screen scripting a TV, and to capture things so I could watch back the final cut episodes or watch back something really interesting just to try and capture things. Or a lot of my early days in Office Hours was just writing down every term or every piece of product I'd never heard of and just write it on a big list, and then after office hours ended, I would just go off and start Googling, start working out how can I use this? Where does it come into my world? Will I need to use it in production? Can I afford it? Which is always a big office hours question. And it was a really lovely thing to have at this time where everything was so closed, and this huge new world just started to open up. It was really exciting.
And Nick, it's always wonderful to see you coming in from your virtual set. Share some of your experience with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me back. And I'll just share that I think it was 2003, 2004 when I first met Alex. So for me, that's when Office Hours began. And I was just breaking into the visual effects industry and feature films. And I met Alex and wanted to learn from him because I knew he had worked at ILM. And what he really wanted to talk about was the fact that in the future, the internet's going to be fast. People will have fiber optics going to their home. And this whole physical production approach is going to be transformed. And then it happened. exactly as he described. And so basically ever since, so now it's wow, 20 years at this point. Yikes, that's scary. I've always stayed in touch with Alex. He's reached out to me. I've learned a ton from him. We've collaborated occasionally. But when COVID hit in March, one of the things that I did was reach out to Alex and say, hey, thank you, because everything that we've done over these last however many years have prepared me for this. Like I had an 810 mini on my desk at that point and was setting up to teach my university classes online. And I could make that pivot instantly because of everything that Alex really had talked about in the years leading up to that. And his reply was, oh, well, if you thought that was good, you should join this, because now we're talking about what's next. And it was, the link to office hours. And so it never ceases to deliver. Alex's approach of going far together is ridiculously valuable. And I came into this knowing little to nothing about streaming technologies, about web video, audio. And it's entirely been office hours that has fed my needs there. And I love being a part of the community, being able to give back. So my area of focus is 3D, and it's a lot of fun to come in and get to share about that. So there you go. There's my experience with office hours in a nutshell.
And Phil.
Hey there.
Hi.
Well, listen, I just really appreciate being asked to come and see you guys again. I really missed everybody here, and I was reading the chats here, and Stefan Fisher wrote in there a little piece of history. And I laugh because that's what my wife calls me, a little piece of history. We have a little age difference between us. So, but when I was telling her I was coming to see you guys again, she was like, wow, is that going to be a little COVID PTSD for you to, everything that happened in COVID is just, something that she wants to put behind her. And I was like, this is like the one thing that came out of COVID that is a positive. And I really feel like, a lot of credit to you, Alex, but, it is a community more than anything, I feel like. And I appreciate that. And he had the vision to see that and has really, enhanced that value for me and things I do as well. So I just think the community's awesome. So to everybody here, thanks.
Let's go to Nigel next.
Yeah, so I joined a little later. I think I also heard about this from MacBreak Weekly, and I knew nothing that would some might argue. I still know relatively nothing compared to most of the people on this panel today. But what struck me very early on was the generosity of the team. The fact that mostly we're used to people in the business world and in the media world guarding their secrets very carefully, because somehow to share them would disadvantage them. And what I found in office hours was actually the exact opposite of that this was a community that was trying to build itself, was trying to help and support people. And I was always amazed in the early days, and now I really respect the amount of time and energy people, whether it was Mickey or somebody else, would spend helping someone get something small right because they needed it to make it work for them. And I don't know I've ever seen a community like this ever operate that way. I guess my other observation, and maybe what my wife would tell you, is I've got a whole bunch of new friends. They're just very expensive, some of these friends. And I think all of us would say that there are a number of organizations and companies that should really be sending money to this community more regularly, because I think we've done well by them.
And Courtney.
Yeah, I think I followed Alex from the early days of Tech TV and ZD TV before that when he was on Leo. And I think I first met him face-to-face, followed him on MacBreak Weekly. I actually used to watch MacBreak Weekly from my cart on the set. And one day, he showed up on the set of Dexter because he came to visit, and Leo came to visit one day too. And that's the first time I met him, back probably in 2012. And so following along with MacBreak Weekly as a regular viewer there, then I heard him talk about the office hours thing as the COVID was starting. And I didn't come in originally from the very first. I wasn't sure how long it was running before I was able to join, but it's been a ride ever since. And you know me, I'm never afraid to share my opinion on anything. So this is a perfect venue for a retired guy like me, since I'm retired.
And George, you have something else to add?
Yeah, there's no one person or factor that's given a lot to office hours, but I like to call it the Mickey factor because he's been there from the beginning. And our audio sound is good because in account to him and a few others, but mostly Mickey. And up to this date, I could find him at 3 a.m. in the morning on office hours in the background. You don't see him, but he's kind of always there lurking. So the Mickey factor.
Yeah, his presence is always felt. Alex.
I think one of the things I was thinking about is really a couple of things that I find really interesting is that I don't think this could have happened without COVID. Now, I don't want to belittle COVID. I mean, I think COVID was a horrible thing, but I think that the fact that we had so much time, and we weren't going anywhere. I couldn't create this. I kept on wanting to recreate Pixel Core over and over and over again, but I was flying somewhere all the time. And I was traveling 250 days a year. I was just, and I never had time to spend the time. I was like, I don't want to really start this unless it's really going to go somewhere. And so it was really, I think COVID and the fact that we all had that time to fuse that core, together is really a thing that made the difference. The other thing that I really, there's a joke usually that when people talk about meetings, there's actually my favorite posters are these, they're called, they're depressing posters. I just think they're funny, but one of them says meetings and it says, because all of us, because all of us are none of us are as dumb as all of us, it is because you always feel like you're in meetings and it goes the wrong way, and you're just wasting your time. And this is the exact opposite of that, that all of us are smarter than any one of us. And when you watch a panel, everyone, I talk to people who want to come on the panel and they're like, well, I don't know all the things that you guys know. I said, none of us know all the things that we know. Right. We all know what I know what I know, you know what you know. But we know so much, and the fact that we figured out a way to do a panel with 12 or 16 people meant that we have all these people here and none of them know as much as all of us know. And when, as Nigel said, we're willing to share that, when people aren't holding on to something and they're willing to just talk about what they know, it makes all of us look smarter than we actually makes me look smarter than I actually am. It's an incredible thing that we figured out because most meetings aren't that way. Most meetings don't generate more knowledge. They usually feel they're a little draining at times. And so I think that it's just an incredible thing that's been created. And I will say that I think it's as much who showed up. It's not just, it's not me. I just put a shingle out and said, we're going to do this thing. It could have turned badly a bunch of different times, or it could have just been me sitting there giving people advice. And the fact that we had other people that came and were willing to contribute what they knew as well as me is what made it so interesting for me as well. I don't think I would have kept on doing it if we didn't have so many incredible people show up and be part of that conversation and lead the parts that they knew more than, and added to what I was bringing.
Thank you all for sharing that. And now we have a special message from Jason Isaacs and Justine Zarek.
A 1,000 hours. 1,000 hours. Think of all the things you could have done that were useful. But instead, you made office hours, which is remarkable. So congratulations to everybody there, to Alex, to Carmi. And it's very, very impressive. And I say that not just because it's true, but because this man is holding my children hostage. Well done, you guys.
Hello, Office Hours. It's Justine, and I am so impressed that you guys have made it 1,000 consecutive shows. I'm honestly speechless. That is so incredibly impressive. It's such a fun show. Just seeing the incredible community that you all have built and brought so many like-minded, creative people in the industry together is really, really special. I had a lot of fun on a few of the episodes that I was able to join, and I guess here's to the next 1,000.
Thank you so much, Jason and Justine. And Bill, let's hear. I'm sure the chat is on fire. What are some of the comments from our producers?
A lot of people are popping in just with congratulations. Richard Bowman says, congratulations, everyone. You are truly inspiring. Eric Price, congratulations, everyone, on hitting the big 1000. It's been an incredible ride, and I look forward to the 2K show. That's kind of scary. Bob Sturdivant says, I'm thankful for MacBreak Weekly, where I first saw Alex and, of course, found Office Hours from there. Of course, after listening to Alex and really liking how he presented his ideas and wisdom. And Jason Bache is in with day one. I was the first in the Zoom room, and Alex and I were both surprised it connected so quickly. So we're working on tech problems even from the very beginning.
Awesome. Well, Bill, let's get into some of these questions.
All right, let's move on to the next thing we've got here. This comes from Talak Lopez Waterman in Norfolk, Virginia. Hi. Were any of the original folks skeptical of this idea from week one?
Grant.
I guess from day one, I might have been a little skeptical. I was thinking, I wonder how this is going to work. But I think the thing is the genius of this all is really what Alex said before about sharing information. He was saying that before there was a process of not sharing information, and then kind of approach this in just sharing. And the people that were around and still are today are people that have curiosity. And we're just actually really interested in lots of different things and wanting to share that. And so from that day one, I was like, this is going to work. As long as we turn it on, it's going to work. And it has.
Richard.
Yeah, I think I was, and still am, I suppose, constantly aghast at the fact that Alex wanted to do a daily show and that it still managed to still be going, and that everyone turns up and asks questions and gives their time and works in the back end. And, it's an absolutely amazing and phenomenal feat to start something as a daily show and it's still going. It's amazing.
No days off, every single day for 1,000 episodes. George.
I'm not sure so much skeptical. A lot of us have already been experimental with communities, but to see COVID forced us to go in a different direction, but to see how fast this grew and kept on going. So a little bit skeptical about will it last? Not really, because folks have already been doing it, but to see where it went to in such a quick period, it's amazing.
And Brian?
So I was just looking at my calendar, and March 27th, 2020, I have a Zoom meeting with Alex Lindsay where I believe Alex Lindsay discussed with me this crazy idea that he had just started. And I do remember that the one thing that seemed absolutely insane was, and we're going to do it every day. Just 7 days a week, absolutely no breaks. We're going to do it every day, and I'd love to have you be a part of it. Now, this is not the first time that Alex Lindsay has approached me with an idea that I thought was a crazy idea. Some of those 1,000 events that Alex did before office hours, I was there for and participated in, and some of them, when he was presenting them to me, were pretty crazy ideas, and yet somehow they actually managed to happen. So on the one hand, I thought it was a crazy idea to do it every day. On the other hand, I was still pretty confident that it was actually going to happen, because Alex does have a tendency to follow through on whatever it is that he decides to follow through on. And then the community that then got built from the beginning, and that's creating a culture and creating a community of people that are their number one priority is to share information and share knowledge. And the number of Alex originally asked me to participate because I've done audio for a bunch of his events, and he knows that that's something I have some expertise at. But what I wasn't prepared for was that I learned how to do 3-point lighting, and I learned what focal length on lenses was, and how to do prime lenses and do, and resolutions and all these other things that I would never have learned otherwise. And that's always been the beauty of it, is that you come with an expertise in one area and you leave with knowledge and expertise in a whole bunch of different areas. So it's been an amazing community to see develop.
You said a mouthful there, Brian. Crazy culture, community, curiosity, so much there. And Jeffrey, what would you like to add?
Hi, longtime viewer, first time panelist. I share the same sentiments as my other panelists here, is that, you start and you think to yourself, how can this be sustained for 365 or 366 days, depending on the year? And then you kind of see how it does. And then the extra stuff that happens to it, like for instance, when After Hours started, then you knew that there was an extra community, that there was another place to go there. And then you thought, well, okay, the pandemic is technically over. We're going back to work. How is this going to survive the post era? And you think, and you see it, and it still goes and still goes. It's determination, and then of course it's also evolution, because this is not a Zoom. This is technically not a Zoom call anymore. This has evolved into a show that, when the next pandemic happens, we are going to be so ready to be part of that. And I hope we can get to 2000 or beyond easily.
Nick?
So to answer the question directly, no, I was never, ever skeptical of this. One is that, the original idea and challenge was setting out to do something that had truly not been done before. And so there's almost no way to fail. If no one's ever done it before, even if it doesn't continue, anyone participating is going to learn from the experience. That's number one. But really, number two is that Alex Lindsay is an absolute master chef when it comes to creating stone soup. So if you don't know what stone soup is, it's a fable about someone asks a town for food and no one gives him any food. So he just puts a stone in a pot. And people curious about what's going on over here, he said, well, taste it. You could try it out and make it stone soup. Everyone in the town starts to contribute something to that soup. And of course, it becomes a wonderful stew. Alex has done this over and over and over again. And he also seems to be incredibly in tune with the direction of media and communications in general. So there was really never a doubt that this was going to be something successful. So I'm really just fortunate to be part of it.
And Alex?
I think I wasn't sure if it was going to last. It was one of those things that I think that every week I kind of felt like from Princess Bride, good work, Wesley, I'm going to kill you tomorrow. This may all end tomorrow. And so I'm going to enjoy every single day of how this works. The reason we did it every day is because I didn't know how long it would last. I just didn't know if it was sustainable. I didn't know if I could continue to do it. I didn't know if my job would take me, because I was technically hired to do on-site management of live events, for what I was doing. And so as soon as COVID ended, this wouldn't be possible anymore. And so if it lasted, but I was like, if I can just go for 3 months, maybe we can, build a community. If I just go for another, and every, if I can just get another 3 months down the path. And what was interesting is that is that as it grew and as more and more people contributed, and then people said, hey, why didn't someone else ask the questions? I think that was that Grant? I don't remember who it was. So it was like, how about we have somebody else ask the questions? Because it seems like you're doing a lot of things over there. And that was the first step of delegation. Why didn't someone else say, why don't we have a couple other people host when you're not available? So Phil jumped in and Chris and Bill. And we just started it started to kind of why doesn't someone else take something away, to the point now where we have a lot of shows that people ask me, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Someone's got to figure it out. And that is an amazing thing. And I think that there was a point where I know that we could never do this again. I think that part of what drives me now is that I just know that this is something really special and something that can't be reproduced again. If it dissipated, it wouldn't come back. No one else is going to build this. And COVID was part of the mix of all that time. So that keeps me going. And I will admit that even after 1,000 shows, I was thinking about it this morning as I was getting ready, is even after 1,000 shows, out of the 1,000, there's probably been 2 or 3 shows where I was like, oh, this is hard. Literally 2 or 3 shows out of 1,000. I mean,
I remember
every other
that show.
You remember that was a little edgy on that show. There was one of those shows was I had slept for 2 hours and I had gone through a highly stressful delivery that, I had to deliver a piece, and I had finished it at 4 a.m. and then had to get up, get there at 6 to start this thing. And I was like, I don't know if I could do this. And I was a little edgy. I had to apologize later. But I think that, it's just, I've never had anything in my life that is so effortless. Being with everybody here, to me, is completely an effortless expression.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Kirsten Osterkamp in Germany. Hi, Kirsten. Which of the factors that brought you here in the beginning is still a driving force to be part of office hours today?
Let's start with Richard.
I think for me, the two main factors were learning and community. So I came to learn some new skills, to understand what I could do better, to understand where I could go, and that has never ever stopped. You know, from the very first days, learning or hearing the words ATEM for the first time, to then trying to work out how to work an ATEM, then trying to work out how to work an ATEM to ME, and then going up. So as the learning increased, just the capacity to learn more increased along with it. And that's kind of my office hours kind of story, is you just start with some little thing and, you know, then build and build and build. And along that journey, we also built a community, and it's been really exciting. The people I've got to work with a lot more through remote production, through the Belfast Method stuff, through all these different things. I've got to meet a huge range of new people, and that's been really exciting all the way, the whole time.
It all goes up from here. Leo?
Yeah, so I already mentioned how I ended up coming to the show, but what has kept me coming and what keeps me coming, particularly for me, it's after hours, is that ability to pass on and both get the knowledge and pass on the knowledge. So it's like that thing, the brain trust, and it's already been mentioned here, is phenomenal. And it doesn't just mean about production, because some of this stuff is about production, but it's also how you deliver things, and you just learn so quickly, and you can actually teach so quickly certain items, and you just get that involvement. And that's really why I keep coming back and back and back to the show.
Grant?
Yeah, I think I know we're saying a lot about Alex, who might be getting a big head, but I think that one of the things that I was so interested about Alex is the type of events that he's working on. Arguably the biggest live streaming, you know, like in-person events, all of that. And so I just wanted to learn from that. And the thing about Alex is he has a commitment to excellence, and he surrounds himself with people with a commitment to excellence. And so one of the first second hours that we had was with Nate, TD, that works with Alex all the time. And I was like glued to that, you know, so I couldn't wait to just learn. And then another one of those second hours was Brian. I remember sitting on a stool with a 58, and the challenge for us was, what is the question? What's the key question that's going to, you know, bring the gold out about that excellence in practice? And that continues now. And so people like Andy that have come along, excellent in this whole other field in theater and all of that that's come along, and all of this software development. You know, there's so many other areas that people have come in that I think there's a commitment to excellence that we all have, and that's what's been magnetic.
Speaking of Andy.
So I think my first episode of Office Hours was December 2nd, 2020. I think it was a focus on lenses. And I showed up that day, not because I have a particular interest in lenses, but because I woke up in the morning and saw a flurry of download emails for our software referencing this Office Hours thing. So you can imagine my curiosity as I'm trying to Google Office Hours and getting no helpful results, of course. Eventually, I stumble across a blog post by Guy, and I follow the breadcrumbs and make my way into the back end, which was, you know, super interesting just to see that there was this group of people who were coming together and moving as a group, trying to learn different things and figure different things out. So that's what brought me here. What kept me was the thought leadership and the impact to the industry. So our relationship has definitely grown and changed over the course of the past couple of years. But what's been consistent is the fact that Office Hours has every single day a place to go and have several opinions, diverse opinions from around the world, focusing on analyzing a specific subject. And that is so incredibly impactful to the industry. And I can tell you, both from the inside and from the outside, that this group really does make an impact on the world around it. We've talked so much today about, you know, what it's done for the community itself. But let's not forget about the wider impact of the industry that Office Hours has been able to offer. And so I'm very appreciative of that. It's what keeps me around.
And Nick?
I don't recall voting on this one. Sorry, but absolutely. I mean, what really brought me in was the focus on streaming. And it was interesting that Office Hours also very early on leaned into education in general. It was not long before it was not just about media streaming and production, but it had a very focused track on educators in general. And I thought that was tremendously valuable. And that's something that's always been interesting to me. And again, it's always been a fun place to be able to share what's going on the 3D side of things as that becomes more and more part of mainstream media production.
Go ahead, George.
So I think for me personally is being around all of these folks that can help our industry grow. And if you look at Zoom of itself, we've definitely helped that to grow. Whether you want to believe it or not, we have helped those ATM minis to now have SDI outputs in them and inputs. For me, I look at myself now and I have this massive setup at home and I'm like, well, this is not geared to office hours, but now I'm able to sit here and train myself. I have a full setup that I could build out a show in my office and then go out and really perform on the job I have to do or build out a show faster when I get on site. So, I've expanded. It's allowed me to really use the tools that we have in office hours and take with me on the road. And
Jeffrey.
Well, there was a door and I just walked through it and they wouldn't kick me out. So that's how I came in here. I built in a new studio when the pandemic started and I started realizing that, if I have to be here for a while, that I need to learn some new stuff, and what better way to do it than a whole bunch of people that already know how to do that type of stuff and get that community sense going. And since then it's grown, I'm up in this studio. This is my production studio. I have my main studio downstairs where I do my shows from, and of course, up here I can edit my stuff. I can edit other people's stuff, and I didn't expect to do that 3 years ago, and now here I am.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Vienna Tran in Adelaide, Australia. What is the one piece of advice that an office hours member gave you that made the biggest difference for you or your practice?
Let's start with Leo.
So I'm going to do exactly what you're told not to do, which is not answer the question directly, but I'm going to say the one piece of advice that I listened to and I just was blown away was I was listening to Carl, and Carl was talking about audio devices, and it was just absolutely amazing. I'm just sitting there listening to this guy who I'd never ever met off in the other side of the universe, and he's just talking about this stuff, and everything clicked. How he explained it, how he did it, and what he actually explained was just amazing. It was just absolutely amazing to be able to listen to this.
Grant?
It's all of lots of Alex's stories and the little quotes that I think of all the time. So one of those is that we plan for rainy days. So then I think of the Vegas story that Alex has told 7 or 8 times. But of course the biggest change for me in information was when Blue Melnick came on for a second hour and spoke about doing a Zoom call with 1,200 people, which meant that it was more than one Zoom meeting, and it blew our minds. And I connected with Blue, and now the rest is history, and we run a business together. So that's kind of life-changing for me.
Go ahead, Nigel.
So I think there are 2 things. The buy once, cry once idea for doing this stuff, I think, was a big thing for many of us, that we were trying to work out how to buy one smaller than we needed, and the idea we should buy one bigger than we needed because we were going to need it. ATEMs are a good example of that. The other thing is that first time I came in with a fancy camera, which I had no idea what I was doing with, Alex very kindly showed me how to color grade and then said to me, do it every day. Do it every day. And I do it every day.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
My biggest piece of advice, get on the panel, get in here, get to talk to people, and then you're going to find your new friends. And, I found my new friends with the remotes. I found my new friends with with OH Space. I found my new friends with this panel right here. All these people, we might not have met in person, but I know that if I go to New York, that there's a couple people there that I can connect up with. If I go to London, there's a couple people that I can connect up with there. So get in and be a part of the group, because it is going to be your gold.
And Alex?
What I think is great is that there isn't one thing. Like, it is something every single day. It is something that it is this exploration that we all do that is made possible by a team behind the scenes running this crazy system that we've built. It is made possible by incredible folks asking the questions that take us places that we would have never thought we would go. And it is incredible panelists that are answering all those questions. And there's not any one piece of advice, but it's like, I'm constantly like grabbing onto, like, just look at these links that constantly get pushed into my Chrome browser, because I'm like, oh, I got to do more of that. I got to check that out. And it's usually 2 or 3 a day. That I'm like, oh, I got to do some more research on that. It's just an incredible thing I feel like I'm just constantly absorbing stuff from everyone around us.
And Carl?
I think the one piece of advice that kind of led to other pieces of advice was Alex saying, if you think you can answer these questions, come on the panel. And that led to me coming on the panel and taking over a second hour accidentally. But the thing is, the other things that I've learned is, I have a background in media. I studied filmmaking. I did photography. So a lot of these things I'm brushing up on what's being done with these techniques, in the modern age, rather than when I learned them like 10 years ago. Because I stepped away from media for a while and I've come back again. But so I'm learning a lot about the streaming side of things. But the thing that actually I didn't know much about outside of home networking was networking, IP networking. And that's actually something I've learned probably over the last 2 years. I came in about 6 months late compared to some of these other guys. But I was doing more of a lean back watching this. I heard through MacBreak, and I was doing a lean back watching it on YouTube. And then Alex did this call to action. I said, yeah, I think it's about time I should get on. I do have a background in this. I do have knowledge in this, and I am getting back into the media world again. And so I came on and I gave my advice, made my little slides, but also in after hours, going on doing a little bit longer talks, as people have said in the past, that my ability to maybe explain things slowly, clearly, or maybe I speak too fast sometimes. But that has helped me too, to explain complex ideas to people who can understand complex ideas, but I've got to do it in a certain order, and then they catch on. That most people can actually understand quite complex things, but there's an order of operation to teach them. And so that, rather than going from the most complex to the easiest, which sometimes I'll say, like, I found out this last week, which is something complex, but I've got to start right at the beginning. The other things things that I've learned is other people's opinions, in the religion that we talk about in the media, as far as how we approach things, like in audio, that kind of stuff. It's really important for me to understand that there's more than one way, to skin a cat. And that's actually helped me in not having to MacGyver everything, and understanding that there is actually just a very simple way of doing something, rather than trying to MacGyver something when you don't have to. You can just strip it back to basics, do first principles, and just unplug all the stuff you have in there and just have like a computer going to a screen. That may be the easiest solution that'll work. But yeah, so I've learned quite a lot from the panel and a lot from after hours as well, about things that I kind of knew about a long time ago and haven't touched on since. But it's massive, very fast refresher course every morning. Generally, if I'm asleep when office hours is on, I'll wake up in the morning, eat breakfast and watch YouTube. So I'm watching it pretty much on a 6-hour delay essentially. But yeah, so my time in the last 2 years on office hours, I have learned volumes of stuff about stuff that I've been on the periphery of. But more importantly, I've learned how to speak to people rather than trying to explain everything to people. Sometimes I just tell them how I use it, and then they kind of get it, rather than me just trying to teach them.
Thank you so much, Carl. And next, we're going to bring John Preto to tell you have some stats and some data to show behind all of this impact. John?
Thank you, Liberty. I'm not sure. Alex, did you get my email? Is it okay to
absolutely.
Show the keynote?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I was part of a video sharing live community back 2014, 2015 called Blab. And that's where a lot of us met. I met Tony Mobley there, Leland. There was a bunch of us that came from that community that we brought over to office hours. And I did statistics there at Blab as well. And then early on, starting in about May, April, June, I thought this could really be something, and we should gather stats. And so I treat office hours as a business. So every day for me, it's going to work and getting up to the dismay of my wife sitting in the other room over there and yelling at me. I compile statistics I take attendance of the panelists and I keep the numbers. But I've got some interesting facts to share with you guys. So I'm going to share my screen here on Excel.
And by the way, I love that somebody did this. I'm not the kind of person that does that. I'm always like, I just do my thing and I don't pay attention to any of these. And the fact that John early on started grabbing this is I think just unbelievable. It's fascinating.
So I know this is really hard to see, guys. I'll walk through some of the interesting stuff on here, but this is top left. This is host, everybody that's been a host, how many times they've hosted and their average talk time. That's a company secret. I don't share how I know these facts. The top 10 shows, which I thought was really interesting. Andy Carluccio's show was the #1 viewed show that we've done. And then Leo's, both of his appearances were the next two. And then Amber MacArthur, WWDC rehearsal, Office Hours 2.0 launch, BMD 12K announcement, Apple event for April 21. The sound guy, Jimmy Sieka, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Alex. And then keynote presentation. I don't remember who did. I think you did that one, Alex. And then an interesting, kind of thing that Alex wanted to know. I'm going to zoom in on this one because I thought that this was interesting. A lot of people wanted to know. Here is the attendance from 12/19/21 to today. I updated this specifically for today. In 10th place, Sky Gleason, 122 appearances. This is for the past year. Then Tom Ferguson, 130. Jeffrey Powers, 133. Nigel at 140. Guy Cochran, 153. Courtney, 208. Bill Davis, 233. Mitch Hill, 329. Alex Lindsay, 337. And somebody, I don't know who's the #1.
That's great.
So some really the one thing, Alex, and you nailed this on the head. If you look at the host talk time, Alex launched panel view, and it took me about 30 days to get used to it. I did not like it at first. And Alex said it tightened the show up. And you see in the middle of host talk time, or as a percentage of the first hour, you see this dip in the middle, which means that the host talk time decreased significantly when we added panel view to the mix in the show. It tightened the show up tremendously. I thought that was an interesting stat. I got a ton of other ones, milestones that we've hit. But the overall cumulative stats, the mean host talk time first hour, 20 minutes, live days in a row, 1,000. Mean daily panelists is 10 and change. That's 30. That's the entire mean across 1,000 shows. Mean daily attendees 100. Mean daily YouTube viewers live, not recorded. It's about a 13-to-1 on demand versus live recording on YouTube, which is interesting. And the mean host talk time across all the episodes is 30%. So that's those stats.
And one of the things that I think is interesting is that, of course, the other thing that happened with concurrence is that when it went on YouTube, a lot of people started time shifting, as been spoken here. So we did, just as a little, because we're in the 1,000th episode, I can tell you things now. So now that it's all water under the bridge, I knew that if we allowed it to be time shifted at the beginning, we wouldn't generate critical mass. So I knew that we needed to say, we're not recording it, or we're not going to make it easy. You can record it on your own, as Richard did. I won't hold you. So anyway, I knew that if people started time shifting at all, the power of office hours is that we come together, that we are here live at the same time, and that we're all thinking about that the producers are asking questions, and we're, as the panelists, we're answering those questions, and there's a power to that. The show doesn't exist without that, and so the thing that I realize is that I can't record, I can't put them out and let people time shift it until we get to a certain size. And so as we started hitting, 250, 300, I felt like we were now at a place where we could survive. And we definitely saw a huge drop in the number of people watching concurrently, because everyone was showing up in the middle of the night for themselves and frustrated with me. But I felt like it was a necessary piece of the puzzle at the time to make sure that we got to a point where we were going to survive that process. Enough people were showing up. And we did. And I think that, but I think that it does skew those numbers a little bit, because the concurrent goes down because there's not as, because people can, a lot of people, as you said, I think would you say, John, 13 times the number of people that are in that concurrent are watching it. And we make almost no attempt to promote this show. The reason I did that is because I wanted us to have time to mature as a show. And so we really, when we're getting, we wanted to kind of learn all these things and get it all running. And really, YouTube has been, I've seen it as an archive for our members. Like it literally is there as a service to the people who are here to just simply have a place to go to if you weren't able to make it.
I've got one more thing to share, Alex.
Yeah.
I was able to get the API to Dolly to work, so I fed in some panelists into Dolly, and out came some doppelgangers that I wanted to share with everybody.
Okay. Let's go.
Here we go. Here's number one. That's what popped out of Dolly. Jason Beish. There you go.
There we go.
Ooh. TJ Asher, he's wearing his hat. He's got
the Heisenberg.
TJ bought this hat. He bought it on Amazon to match this. Chris Ritchie.
Love it.
Guy Cochran. Look at that. That's pretty close, right?
Yep.
Todd Reynolds. I got approval from all these people, so I didn't. I have more, but I didn't get approval on all of them. Chris Fenwick, Dennis the Menace. That's perfect. Nigel Hill. Look, I couldn't find one for Nigel, and I ran this through one of these things on the web, and this is what came out. And then somebody said Chris Pine, so I ran it again. John Wallace.
That's good. There's
Bill Davis. JJ approved of this one. Genghis Khan, right? And Greg Kurta, and that's a cut for my portion today. Thank you guys. Congrats to everybody for 1,000 episodes.
Thank you so much, John. And if things don't work out, everyone has an alternate job that they can go to. But for now, we're going to take a look back at the early days of Office Hours.
Check. Good check.
Yeah, that
Tucker,
does.
you're coming in?
We need to add call signs to when we're doing checks now. Is that what's going on?
How am I coming in?
Good.
Sounds good, Mickey.
Good check.
Jeff from South Carolina.
Guy here from Seattle.
Jeff, you're thin.
Never been accused of that ever.
Kevin Maurer, you look like you're coming in from the deep coast.
I opened my garage door and it's just blowing in is what it is.
I was going to change topics if that's fine.
Grant, by the way, for everyone, is the actual OG. So the very first person that registered for this.
I had to build a little sort of booth for myself, and the background was crap, so at last minute, that's why the sheet's there.
There's about 125 people that are here in Zoom. We're trying to figure out how big this can get and whether it's going to be sustainable after quarantine. We're trying to turn it into something where it might actually make sense to keep doing it. I don't know whether it's my magnetic personality.
That's the only thing that's not super sexy.
We keep on getting a little bit bigger every day.
What would you be using it for?
We're looking for candid. We're looking for real. We're not looking for scripted. Maybe this thing just needs to go to that thing.
It depends on what you're doing.
Grant, are you doing that in US dollars or Australian dollaroos?
12 grand Australian and you're done.
How often have you had a switcher crash in production?
I've had one catch fire.
I think it was overloaded or something like that.
Until I do that, most people just assume that I'm in a room that looks like that.
Yeah, kind of, not really.
I've been doing this a long time, and I've never understood that an expander makes quieter things quieter. I learn stuff here every day. It's a bad name. It should be a quieter.
Office Hours has evolved from a global conversation, but also with the technology and the innovation that takes place. And I'd like to welcome Andy Carluccio and Richard Lavery to talk about Liminal and Zoom and Isadora. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Liberty. It's, again, a real pleasure to be with everybody celebrating Office Hours and 1,000 episodes. So I figured what I do, and Richard, you wink at me if this is how we want to attack this one, but I'll take us through a little bit of the early days of setting up the infrastructure for the show, and then Richard can catch you up a little bit, from where we are today. So it actually traces a lot of its roots back to Victor Cajallo and the Sunday Sax Jam. If you think about it that way, that was actually one of the first remote switch shows that we did. And the back end for it was Isadora and Streamweaver talking to his X32 to QLab and to his ATEM. So we were doing that in the spring of 2021, summer 2021. And Alex wrote me and he said, hey, with some of what we were doing with Victor's show and what you just put out with Zoom ISO, which we had released in June of that year, what would it take, to try to do something a little bit more complex than streaming directly out of Zoom, but not requiring all the infrastructure that would be done for like a one person in each room type of production, which we had done some experimenting with for WWDC. So with Zoom ISO now out, I flew out to 3210 Studios in July. We started building the first prototype of Office Hours 2.0. And there were a couple of key ideas as I was sitting with Alex and JJ working on the original hardware infrastructure on the tabletop with a gaff rack set up, what was going to be involved in some of that. So some key ideas were adding an API to Mukana so we could share information about panelist and participant actions with the backend, discovering how to use Universe Control's web interface with a Cloudflare quick tunnel. Jonas had been doing some experimenting on how to get remote companion view for other operators. I said, well, could we combine that with Universe and get remote TDs with custom interfaces? And then building an Isadora control system that centralized data from a bunch of different things. That was kind of a crazy idea for me, at least, because I used Isadora as a theater maker to do media and projection design. But it had all this high throughput data capability, which was something really interesting there, to turn the ideas of Zoom and Mukana, which were very much focused on people and their participants and their names, into things that can be used with switchers, with, mix effect, with the ATEM, which care about input numbers. So building this relational database, making automatic super sources based on people's raised hand events in Mukana. I think that's a great highlight of how some of this works together. It pulls together 5 or 6 different pieces of hardware and software to be able to make something like that happen. And then using Universe as an abstraction layer to simplify the control of multiple systems down to a single bespoke customized interface that somebody can operate anywhere in the world and have. And I think, the team has just done amazing work on bringing all of those things together and automations and macros that you could sit there with an iPad and switch, an incredible amount of hardware from a really simple to use interface. So then in November, Jonathan and I flew back to 3210, finished up some of the infrastructure right around Thanksgiving time with Alex and JJ, and the gaff rack evolved a little bit more. A couple more things got added to it. Computers got simplified and tightened up. And then December 27th, Zoom completed their asset purchase of Liminal, and I sort of turned over to the new Office Hours team to take it from there and get it ready for showtime. So, and Richard can probably take us from there about, how the show's evolved since then.
I just want to know before Richard starts what a gaff rack is. People might not know what a gaff rack is. When we call something a gaff rack, it means that we stacked a bunch of things up that would fit into a rack mount, and then we just gaff them together. We gaff tape. We just put tape down them so that they don't move in relationship to each other. So that is the technical. That is the description of the technical term known as the gaff rack.
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I think we don't have the photos at the moment, but I think we'll try and share some more. It's just those early days of seeing the 2.0 structure just sat on a table in 3210 is quite funny. Just seeing it all just sat there, the minis, and watching it from the back end. So it's been an interesting journey because I joined onto the 2.0 team then just when Andy was handing over in December last year, and I remember a lot of the stuff that we used to do over kind of Christmas. We just sat on like a Zoom together for days on end, just going through what was just handed over to us, and trying to work out, well, what do we have to do? And in the background, Alex going, "We're going live in a month. We're going live in a month," and we're kind of in the Zoom going, We're never going to make that. That's nuts. We have to tell Alex, no, we're going live in a month. It doesn't matter whether it's ready. We're going live. So it was a really quite lovely time, apart from the fact that it was a Christmas and we were all sort of maybe meant to be doing other things at Christmas. It was just really lovely. I remember sitting on my couch in the house with an earbud into Zoom and then watching the TV with the family, just listening to the tech conversation as we were kind of walking through. So I was kind of in kind of two split worlds. So when Andy kind of handed over, this is Isadora as it was when Andy handed it over. So this is 2.0 when it was first kind of given. So given to us, and then in January, kind of at the beginning of this year, kind of turned into this. And Talalok and I have a bit of a the conversation in the third hour, so I won't delve into the technical details too much. But essentially, Juan then took it over this year and made this, which is now the experimental patch. So you can kind of see how it's growing. And then this is our kind of patch now as it came down from the experiment. This is what's running the show right now in a computer in 3210. And then as Andy said, we all run then this through this, which is essentially just a web page that anyone in the world can access, and this runs the show. So right now, our TD is sat with this, or possibly this version of it, in front of them, cutting between the active speaker and the super sources and all this. And so everything that Isadora is doing, the back end underneath that, is creating this opportunity to create such a really simplified system that you can almost pare that down to an active speaker button and a super source button. It does so much of that work for us. It's been a huge amount of work, and we'll go through lots of the unsung heroes in the third hour. But it's just such an amazing system. And as much as kind of we're here as the first start of the Kalo show, some of us are kind of missing the early days of kind of the open Zoom meeting. What's really cool about what Andy and then the rest of the team have done with the 2.0 structure is it's set a huge bar for what a production in using Zoom and using any kind of system can be. You know, the learning that I've taken from the 2.0 system, we now use in all the Belfast shows, the learning that other people have taken. It's an amazing kind of playground and playpen. It's an amazing sandbox, I suppose, just to sit in and get to play with and to experiment and to grow and use on a show that is, again, daily. So every single day, something's being tested. Every single day, something's being refined. And I remember the first day when 2.0 was turned on, it didn't work. And that's probably my fault because of how we coded Universe at that stage. So I'll take the blame for that. But then within a day, then it was back up and was running. It was good to go. And it was just, it's been an absolutely amazing process to be part of and to watch the team, Juan and Talalok and JJ and Jonas and everyone who's been part of the dev team, as well as the wider TD and the question manager team. There's too much to mention at the moment, because I'm aware we're tight on time for the first hour, so I won't go into too much, but it's been such an amazing kind of process.
And I do have a picture. I have a picture. Here it is. Hold on. This is I don't know if this is exactly the first one, but pretty close to it. There is a picture that I took. I just randomly was like, I better take a picture of this because we're going to want to look at this in a second. So that was the original one. This is the gaff rack that I was talking about. Everything carefully gaffed together so it doesn't slide away. But yeah, this was like, oh, let's just buy some sonnets, buy some Mac Minis. Fortunately, you know, you'll see Loner here on a lot of the stuff. So Black Magic was like, what do you need? So like figure this out. And so anyway, so that's what it looked like. And you can see that we needed this. It was very hard to get to some of this stuff. So we did a very technical thing here, which is that we put it on top of the Mac Mini boxes, and that worked.
Mac Mini's the gift that keeps on giving. The boxes, the stack. I mean, it was core infrastructure, both physically and from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, there you go.
And Josh and the team have the JJ's video of making the current rack, which might be an interesting contrast just to cut to.
We're like a hermit crab, you know, like so like we just go find another shell. So this was the first shell, and then we had to move into another shell, and then we were and then it now needed to move into a larger shell. And I think this is the time lapse of us moving into us as a hermit crab going from one shell to the other.
However we can bring it together, we make it happen here on Office Hours. Well, Bill, I see on the side of my screen here all the comments going off. What are our producers saying?
Here's a few of the ones that have come in recently. Ray Franklin said, congratulations to all who worked so hard to up the game of Office Hours on the projects these past 1,000 days. Chris Clark says, I first met Alex in 1977 when he was 10 or 11 years old. Clearly, even then, a leader and supporter of other kids doing cool things. Office Hours is a global version of 1977 on the Lindsay farm. Vienna Tran, thank you, everybody here, for making Office Hours the brilliant community it is. I'm very grateful to call many of you my friends. Right back at you, Vienna. Ranjan Chandel, Office Hours reminds everyone it is possible to make connections over the internet.
Well, Bill, let's get into some of these questions.
Okay, moving on. The first one we have here is from JJ McKenna in Santa Venetia, California. And JJ says, let me get it up here. It looks like Andy is dressed to become the new CEO of a social media company. Any news he can share?
Andy?
For the 500, people wore suits and everything. So it's, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I better put a tie on or something. Like, come on, guys. But I'll take the opportunity to say, that I have my Christmas present for office hours, which is the 5.13 update of Zoom rooms. You should be able to check that out at some point today. So Merry Christmas, Happy 1000, Happy Holidays. And then I'll also say that again, in reflection, I talked about at Zoomtopia the importance of office hours to Zoom and as a strategic partner in our media vertical. And just to, again, express thanks on behalf of everybody for your continued, like I said, thought leadership, engagement, and pushing really the most complex production that takes place on the Zoom platform every single day. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you. Next question.
And from Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida, what proved to be the best way to build a community with office hours?
Ooh, let's go with Alex.
Showing up. Like if you want to build a community around something, it's, I think that the folks that have become really part of that community, everybody's part of a community, however they do it. So there's some people that are just watching and asking questions. There are people who are jumping into Discord and having great conversations. But then, and it's kind of like the people just keep on going forward. So then there's people who jump into after hours and have, just the conversations we have in after hours, then panelists, and then they start taking on, okay, I'm going to do part of the team. And I think that there's this incredibly rich community building here. And all I would say is just keep looking at where you might be able to contribute and be part of that community, because it's really powerful.
Chris?
Yeah, I would say being open and being willing to share, willing to be vulnerable. I think the first step to learning is being able to actually admit, you don't know. I heard somebody say earlier that I think it was Phil, was saying that he had written down all this stuff. And I still have a giant document of every, thing that I learned, especially in the first year and a half, including all of the Alex quotes. I have those all pulled aside also. But being able to open up and share and learn, it's the best way to build a community.
And Jeffrey.
And letting people take the helm. I found, and that's something that I'm learning how to do is, you get a whole bunch of people and some people know exactly what they're doing. Some people want to learn. And so if you give them a chance to see what they can do, they can definitely shine. So how many times have I was a host of After Hours, or I was doing this, doing the YouTube or anything like that. If you just have to ask and say, hey, I'd like to be part of this. And then all of a sudden you're finding new skills.
Well, thank you so much to our first hour panels for your contributions and taking us down memory lane. And as we get ready to bring on a second panel, we're going to go to this video to hear more from our office hours members.
Okay, thank you to the community of office hours. It's been a huge eye-opening for me. Using all the video, audio tools that we have available for my online classes right now. It's been a huge success. Many pilots are joining me. And now that I'm back into the cockpit, I've got less time to be with you. I regret it. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much, guys. See you.
Hello from Hollywood. Courtney Gooden here. Congratulations, Alex, on number 1,000 of the Office Hours shows. Who knows? Maybe after another 1,000, we'll get our own star right here on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I wanted to say how great it is to reconnect with the filmmaking and editing world that I was once part of. Thank you again for making me a speaker of the second hour on 3D apparel. It was one of the more exciting events in the last year.
What has After Hours meant to me? During the pandemic, it became a space for me to seek refuge from the daily woes of COVID. Cheers to the next 1,000 and in-person meetups. After Hours, big up yourself.
My name is Greg Swick. I'm a Santa performer. Been doing it for 4 years virtually, and I got to know this group called Office Hours Global. But I can't thank enough of the people from Office Hours Global, the after hours. There's so many, Simon, who worked on my nice list here. A lot of different things that we worked on. And I'll always be grateful, and I'll always be a member of the Office Hours Global community. Good job, guys.
Hey, Office Hours, congratulations on 1,000 episodes. All I can say is our time together has been unreal, and I never met a human better than the ones that I get to work with here in Office Hours. Looking forward to the next 1,000 episodes. Until next time, have fun.
So I started on Office Hours as just a producer, asking questions, making my agency better for almost a year. It wasn't until I asked for a ruthless review of my Facebook Live road check that Alex elevated me to the panel, not on a 6K, not with a PR40, but with a Facebook portal. So that was my first panel appearance. Had many great experiences after that. Everything we learn and everything we share is so valuable to the community. So thanks, everybody, and congrats on 1,000 episodes.
At a time of great uncertainty and stress, this group of professionals worked on helping improve the audio, the video, and the techniques of using virtual communications to meet pressing needs and connect global communities. All this to support a global conversation where no one's left out. Well done, Office Hours. And I, for one, look forward to the next 1,000 episodes.
Wonderful. It is so great to see the community and see the impact that Office Hours has had. And Bill, like we're now at the top of the second panel. How has the celebration been for you?
It's been a combination of truly exciting, but also nostalgic. You know, I remember going into the pandemic, and I remember like signing up for masterclass and a bunch of things because I thought it was going to be the most boring period of my life where I was cut off from everybody. And the people that you're seeing here today made it the exact opposite. I made more friends and more connections through this magic of Office Hours. And you're seeing their faces. We've got a whole new panel coming in on the back end now. And this has been, if ever there was a question about whether people can truly connect and create community over a virtual global thing, those questions are just gone for me now because this has been a magnificent experiment.
Yeah, and it's been wonderful to see, you know, we're just wrapping the OG panel and seeing some familiar faces that we see pop up in, as Alex mentioned, in Discord and in After Hours. And I remember it was Colin Sandy, because I do want to, you know, give him a shout out because it was May, June 2020 that he messaged me and he's like, there's something going on over here that you want to get in on, you can provide value. And I'm confident that's been a lot. And for our producers, let me know, like, let us know, how did you hear about Office Hours so we can hear some of your stories as well. And Bill, as you mentioned too, just community wise, like you've been involved with the remotes, you've done labs.
Absolutely. Going out to OH space into the desert and walking onto a literally middle of nowhere dry lake bed and looking, going, I know him, I know her, this is my community. I've never seen them in person, but walking out there was like coming home. And that is an amazing thing emotionally to find as a result of this virtual community.
And I want to take this moment now to welcome our second hour panel, our group where we're going to talk about just the education hours, the second hours, the labs, as we just discussed. So welcome panel.
Look at all these cool faces. Wow.
Great. And now I want to get started with talking even just about education and the learning aspect of Office Hours and how that has been an integral part of us showing up every day, but even our education hours on the weekend. And if we can have, let's see, who should we start with? John, if you want to share some of like even you coming in now with the education hours.
Sure. Education hour has been fun. It really started at the very beginning when it was a real challenge for the educators who were being pushed into remote learning, that we just started with the technical issues. Where can we find a microphone? How can we improve a video image? But it rapidly became very philosophical. It became very reflective and became a community of teachers, students trying to figure out how to make this all work. Education hour was a a great experience for me because it helped me help my fellow faculty members when I got called in to see what I could do to help my university.
And Alex?
I think overall, one of the things that what we do is really based on, for me anyway, and whether it's the education hour or really all of office hours, is that, for maybe a couple, 10, 50,000 years, maybe more, maybe 100,000 years, we learned in a certain way. We've, as humans, and that is we watch, we then ask questions, we then try it, and then we watch, ask questions, try, watch, and just step repeat in that area. And I think that office hours, it really embodies that, in the sense that that's what we're doing most of the time, whether it's the labs or the second hour. The second hours, we're asking questions, we're out there doing things, we're trying to figure it out, and then we're coming back and regrouping again and learning. And I think it's one of the more efficient ways to learn. Actually, it doesn't have the structure that most people want. But it seems to be, it does pretty good job for me. as when I come every day, I'm still learning all the time.
And Sky?
As the husband of a teacher, I was there as a survival technique. And office hours to me was the CrossFit exercise of learning and doing from the doing. And as we had gone into this disaster that we didn't understand, the novel coronavirus was a thing that had never been experimented or experienced before. So when Guy Cochran said, "Hey, there's a bunch of people talking about education," that's my interest in what I started joining in with the office hours experience, because I wanted to support my wife. And of course, as we know, a happy wife is a happy life. So it was sheerly selfish.
Got you. David?
Post-college, I went to 5 years of rabbinical school to become a rabbi. And the most important thing, really the only thing that I learned there, is how little I know. And what a joy it is to be in a place where all of us embrace the fact that we don't know enough. There's always something new to learn. And that is just the greatest blessing of all.
And John?
I think anybody who is a strong performer inevitably gets asked to help other people learn. And so I'm here to help myself learn how to teach others.
And Hasmuk?
Well, every time somebody comes to my office and they look at all the equipment, they get completely mesmerized. And they think that they've come to a really professional studio. And I didn't know anything about this at all before COVID. So it was just pure curiosity that led me into office hours and the name Alex Lindsay. And that's how I learned step by step. And initially, I was very shy. I was, in fact, anxious. I was quite nervous. But today, all of that is in the past. So in South Africa, and probably part of the subcontinent, I think I try and promote this concept of virtual meetings almost every day.
And Alex?
And I think that one of the things that's really powerful is the persistence of the community. While there's a certain level of people coming in and going out, there is a persistence of so many of us that have been here for so long, and people continually coming in and staying. And it's part of why we keep all learning together, is because when one of us or a handful of us share it with other people, then that injects that knowledge into the community. And we know that that's going to, it's, if you write it down, it's just going to stay where it's at. But if you give it to other people, it'll keep growing. It just keeps growing. Then they keep on digging into it. So the next time you have a question, you now have a bunch of people to answer your question. And I think that is a really powerful part of this. It's not like a university where everyone's going to be there, and then 4 years later they're all going to be gone, and there'll be a new set. It's a constantly growing set and a relatively stable set.
And After Hours is an integral part of our community. And I hear that there are some folks watching us now and if you're watching, please wave so that we could see your faces and see you at After Hours. Hey-o! And speaking of After Hours has evolved, but it originally started with Carmi and Hasmuk. Is that correct?
I'll give Kami the floor. He's the He's the consummate host that I stumbled into, and Kami can share the story, and then I'll back him up. I'll make sure everything is the truth and nothing but the truth.
Carmi, the floor is yours.
The truth as well as I can remember it. So really what happened was I actually, unlike a lot of people, didn't come to office hours from Mac Break. I had a friend at a company that has a lot of gear that we all use. And he said, you should talk to this guy, Alex Lindsay. And Alex and I finally connected, and it was quite funny because we had about 1 billion friends in common and had attended 1 million events of the same things, but never met. It was really interesting. So I had gotten hurt about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago. I'd hurt my back and I couldn't move. So I just basically couldn't do anything. And so I would just sit on the show. And we used to have a pre-show for a bit, then we'd have the show, and then we'd have a post-show. We had 3 different Zoom meetings. And Alex was always very clear that only people that he knew well and knew what they were doing could be host. And then one day he said, who can stick around for a bit? And I'm like, I'm here. And he's like, well, you're host now. Like, got it. Awesome. Okay. I have no idea what I'm doing. And it was also important that at the time I was primarily using my iPad because I didn't really want to move, and it was much easier to not have to walk anywhere. I could just use my iPad, which it turns out is really hard to host a Zoom meeting from an iPad. So this went on, and that day, Alex would usually say to the host of the after show, the post show, keep it open for a couple of hours, keep it open for 3 hours, 5 hours, whatever. And that day he said, keep it open until you want to leave. And since I had nothing else to do, I didn't leave. And at about 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning, I fell asleep. And somebody actually was trying to wake me before the next show started, and that didn't really work. But we went through, and the next day we did it again. And at some point, Hosmic and Ken Jordan both said, you need to go to sleep. So we will make sure that we're there at midnight, your time, so that you can go to sleep, and we'll keep it open until you get back in the morning. And that was really the evolution. It was just purely a defense mechanism. I had nothing else to do. And it was more interesting than watching YouTube. So that was really a starting point. And as Hosmic said, although one last bit I'll add was, it was really important to get people. We had a lot of people who would come in and sit in after hours, but wouldn't turn on their cameras. And so one of the first things I started doing was, whenever I saw a name of somebody I didn't recognize, I would just introduce myself. And I would say, how are you? Who are you? You don't have to turn on your camera if you don't want to, but we'd love to see you. And it took a bit, but after a while, we started getting a lot of those people to engage. And I think that was a big part of it.
Thank you, Carmi. And yes, always welcoming in and inviting in after hours. And Hosmic, you want to share, was what Carmi said accurate?
Yep, everything is accurate to date. But we spend a lot of time on framing yourself correctly. And I didn't understand why Kami could not frame himself, because physiologically he was challenged. So he did use the iPad. And so I saw him with his video, just a bit of his head, and clearly he fell asleep. I knew that. And then I said, hello, Kami. Now I also understand why Kami always said, almost every day, hey, Hosmic, is that you? Yes, it's me. Are you really here? Yes, I'm really here. Okay, let's hand over the host. And for a while after that, Mickey was also listening, and John Edelston made sure. And John would come in and say, I want to make sure that the baton gets passed on. And then Mickey would play our anthem for the handover. So he would play the anthem, he would play Ken Jordan's anthem. So really we got into a routine. But there's something I want to add, which is called the Kami-Hashmukh-Fenwick effect. And that effect is when you end the meeting, make sure you don't end the meeting for everyone. And a couple of times we ended that meeting and somebody somewhere had to hustle Alex, whichever nightmare he was having. Sorry, Alex, the meeting has ended. And that happened a few times. So thankfully, it doesn't happen anymore.
That's wonderful. Bill, let's get into some of these questions from our producers.
Absolutely. More people weighing in all the time. Paul Prusakowski has a little formula for us. OH equals AV Club for Grownups. Javier Alfaro's in with, I've never seen a community so involved in learning together and helping each other, where ego is not even an issue and newcomers are truly welcome. Thanks, everyone. I'm very grateful to be a part of this community. Greg Gibson is up next. He says, for someone who is making the pivot into virtual event production, office hours was like a lifeline in the middle of an ocean I was struggling to stay afloat in. And Idris says, happy office hours. Many, many thanks. Office hours have helped me develop AV skills that are essential in my IT job. I first learned about office hours during Mac Break Weekly. Again, I cannot thank the panel enough and everyone.
Wonderful. Next question.
Next question comes to us from Dave Troutman in Edmonton, Canada. And Dave says, has your experience with office hours changed your understanding of, in quotes, community?
Leo? And let's go to Dave.
Yeah, Leo jumped off the panel a bit earlier. In my world of faith communities, community is everything. It's all about community. And early on, after watching office hours and being a part of it, I started teaching the people that I work with to not use the word virtual, a virtual community, a virtual experience. What we're able to create here, what we're able to create when we use these technologies well, is as real as it gets.
And Vienna?
Thanks, Liberty. I probably defined community as something that has to be in person. It's just something that I grew up with and didn't really think about online communities at all. I think community now is anything where people get together and have something in common and help each other and have this symbiotic relationship. And that's exactly what office hours is. I'm not exactly the most tech-savvy person by any means, but I have enjoyed office hours for what it's given me and the small parts that I've been able to contribute and help for other people. So that's all a community needs to be, and that's its fire, is that symbiosis.
And John?
Back in 2005, EDUCAUSE started a research project on communities of practice online. And it was a great experiment. We launched 5 communities and 2 of them sort of remained and 3 didn't quite make it. Office hours was like the Uber experiment. So many of the things that we researched in that community practice, office hours did right, just naturally.
And Sky?
I've been a part of both in-person communities most of my life, but I had been a part of a virtual community in technology previous, and it had saved my life and made an income, helped me make an income. But I was once told that life is a team sport, and so is video production. And I think this is the connection of this, as Chris calls it, the affinity group of like minds wanting to help one another and help get better all the time. So it's definitely made been a variety of experiences and building of community for me.
Go ahead, Alex.
You know what? I know it'll be hard for people to think about this, but I'm not the most social person in the world, and you know, I tend to be a bunch of an introvert and don't really go out unless I have to. And the fact that I really feel like every time I travel somewhere now, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out who I can talk to. You know, like who in the community is going to be there that we can see. And I really feel like I have the largest group of friends that I've ever had in my entire life in office hours. And I get excited about every single time that I'm going somewhere. I mean, I get excited to come hang out and see who's going to show up at the panel and who I get to hang out with today. And, you know, we were sitting in last night, I was cleaning my garage, listening to listening to office hours, and people were helping somebody figure out what monitor they should use. And I was like, this is just peak after hours. Like, just, people graciously just figuring it out and digging through something that is pretty, pretty basic, but very important, and something that needs to be sorted out. And people are like finding out what price and where you can buy it and how you can do it. And I just thought, wow, that's, it's just like, to me, having a community that can deal with, hey, we're going to learn how to do HDR and surround sound, and we're going to talk about photogrammetry, and we will also talk about, how to connect your monitor to your laptop, and we'll do it just as graciously on both ends. I didn't expect that, in this community.
And Chris.
Sky mentioned it briefly, that I think there's a big difference between a community or a community group and an affinity group. By and large, Office Hours is an affinity group. We all have a common interest in technology. However, there is a tipping point. And I think that we reached the tipping point in the summer of 2020 when Mike passed away. And there is an emotional buy-in. And there's a point where everything else washes away because of that human experience. It's the type of thing, like when we lost Mike Andrews, things changed. Things really changed. And I look at some of the friends that I've developed in the last couple of years, and the affinity group absolutely graduates to a community group. And I think that quite often we all play the same game, Call of Duty or whatever, and we think it's a community. Not really. But when it has that tipping point, although that tipping point sometimes is very painful, it's a very, very real thing, and it's really what has pulled this group together so tightly.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from our friend Chris Clark in Tempe, Arizona. And Chris says, U.S. public education is an intrinsically political process operated primarily by 2.5 million women. Does this help explain the ups and downs of Education Hour as a daughter show of explicitly non-political, largely male office hours?
Go ahead, John Snyder.
I think regarding Saturday Education Hour, that difference is really important to bring diversity within the community, because until we can truly have conversations with people who are significantly different than us, including across the political spectrum or gender gap, as you're saying, Chris, largely male-dominated office hours, the public education sector brings value to our organization and to our community in a way that other places may not. And we need to be active at making sure that we're reaching out to those people to add that conversation into our community.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to take this moment to go to a quick clip from our OH space crew.
In early 2020, as the lockdown and pandemic went into full effect, several tech nerds from around the globe began to meet daily on Zoom in Office Hours, a live technology Q&A show hosted by Alex Lindsay. However, as time went on, this group of people began to form real relationships that, among other things, have grown into this event today, the Level 3 certification flight for John Preto.
When Preto said that he was going for his recertification, I said, hey Preto, let me know and I'll be there.
When we started planning this little adventure, I knew that I could link a work trip in Denver with a trip to Vegas and a little bit of vacation. So all told, when we're all said and done, I've driven over 5,000 miles.
The rocket launch is all John, but the crew is all gathered here to create a live show. That's exciting.
Not only has the gang traveled from all over by car and plane and whatever, but some of the R&D has been going on really around the globe. There's representatives from Australia, Israel, Germany, England, like everywhere. It's great. South Africa. It really is a global community.
We haven't actually totaled up all of the miles and time put into what we're doing here today, but it's pretty safe to say that John Preto rolled out onto the lake bed with the largest entourage here.
This community has produced some impressive events, just like you saw with OH Space, Matted the Kitchen, NAM, Cinegear, and the list goes on and on and on. And we want to take a moment to recap some of those events and share some more of the learnings and the experience, and really how this global community has had an impact on the world. And I would like to welcome John Preto, Chris, and we'll get this party started with Noah. Noah, if you can talk to us about some of the projects that you've been involved in.
Thanks, Liberty. Man, it's been such an exciting couple of years, and just to see the evolution. And it really all stems back from the core principle that we've been talking about with office hours, of that global community where nobody's left behind. And the thought of like having an idea spark, with Alex and with Carmi and the other people that have mentioned the things they're working on, right? And then for the community to just take that idea and run with it, and I hope Chris will talk a little bit about how office hours space took off in that sense, having that idea come into fruition. But as far as like the events that I've been involved in, it started with coming out of the space event and just thinking about the next event and the things that I'm working on. So I'll let the other team take the floor, and I'll come back to some more thoughts.
Go ahead, Sky.
I'm going to hand it back over to Keenan now that he's jumped in there, because he drove the most distance for me.
Keenan?
I actually drove the most distance, but I would pass it to Tuomo, but since he didn't raise his hand, I'll take it. OH Space was one of those, it's kind of like After Hours. We had this idea and Carmi ran with After Hours. Well, Fenwick and I had this idea of making Preto's little rocket launch into something huge. It went from this to, we can't even measure it. I drove over 5,000 miles, and it's all possible because of this circle that everybody created. Alex had the idea, and then it just kept going and spearheading, and Fenwick ran with it. And I will tell you, I live in Nevada now because of John Preto and Chris Fenwick. I retired. Things went on in the life, all the bad stuff that happened. I had this positivity of this team to put all our efforts toward OH Space and do a rocket launch. But it literally has changed the trajectory of my life 1,000 degrees the other way. So I live in Nevada from Illinois. So if you want to think of it that way as a case study, I literally picked up everything. And now Preto and I shoot rockets for fun in the desert with our friend Fenwick and Jack and Widener and all this crew. And it's amazing. So wow. Thanks, guys.
Really changing lives, changing locations as well. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I've been just gobsmacked. The office hour space thing was transformative, to be out there and to be able to see so many people putting in so much effort and to have such extraordinary results. And I saw the same thing, and I've been going to NAB for decades, but when we did the coverage of NAB and Cinegear and NAM, seeing Guy like pop up as a field reporter and do such an outstanding job of that, and just getting the feeling like if I can't go to a show, a major conference, that there's a crew of volunteer people who can put the experience in my phone or in my computer in a way that is satisfying to me as somebody who used to go to these shows all the time. That just extends that information so far out into the world, and I think it's just outstanding.
John Preto?
But Vienna was our host from it, and there's a great story
fabulous too.
Yes. For Carl setting up her set like with minutes before the show's coming on. It was a fabulous story. The team was amazing. We had 23 people from office hours come in the middle of the desert. It was freezing cold in the morning and hot in the middle of the day. It was spectacular. And I have to thank Alex for bringing the community together. It's absolutely amazing. And we're relaunching a bigger rocket. It's 46 bananas tall, according to the Alex. and we're going to launch it on the biggest commercially motor that you can launch, which is an 8000. There you go.
Vienna's got her banana up.
October of next year. So coming soon and great things ahead.
Tuomo?
I was introduced to office hours in September of 21, and just few months after that, I was invited to Nevada, middle of desert, shooting a rocket. That was pretty amazing to do that.
Noah,
and just to see the community and the people come together in such a great moment. It was a spectacular event. I just remember, we spent a lot of time in prep working on the show ahead of time, and there's probably 30, 40 hours worth of stuff that we're meeting on and talking about and discovering on, like, just from our department, and there's like three or four other departments happening. But I just remember going into somebody's trailer, and we sat down, and, there's 6 or 8 of us all together. You could see the nerves rumbling around between the people. And I just remember turning to the group and saying, the latency in this meeting is just so good, because we're there in real time and we're so used to having that 200 millisecond delay. And so that kind of just broke the ice. And for me, it just signified that, like, we're here, we're together, like, we made this happen. And we extended past, the virtual world into the real world, and just solidified all that time and energy we spent leading up to that moment.
Low latency, the things that get us excited here at Office Hours. Let's go to Chris Fedwick.
It was super strange as people started showing up and meeting people face to face. There's certain things that pop up. You wouldn't realize that Tuomo's like 6'3" or something. He's really tall, And I remember the first time I met Preto, it's like, wow, it's like real 3-dimensional people. But it was really hard to describe just how exciting that was, to watch all these people just pop up that you would only, normally only seen in a little box. And all of a sudden, they're standing in front of you. And then they all, pulled the stops. And I told John afterwards, I said, you've pretty much reached peak Tom Sawyer here. You're never going to be able to pull this off again. So it was incredible.
And Sky?
Well, and the 2 words that keep coming to my mind, Chris, are impossible and experiment. And I think we've been a part of both of those things that have become possible because of community, because of people, because of aspiration, and the encouragement of a positive attitude that let's try it, and the opportunity to fail forward. We failed forward on a lot of things on Office Hours, and the OH space experiment, and we learned a lot from each other because we each bring our own unique experiences to, as was mentioned earlier, we brought our thing to the pot, to the stone soup experience. So is this the time to talk about when Alex called me and said, hey, you want to do a cooking show?
This is a great time to talk about that, especially we also have Hasmukh and Damyanti here. Cooking has been a big deal for our Office Hours, and Shannon as a part of our Office Hours community.
Well, Alex said, I want to do this thing. And he called Madeline Smithberg and myself, and he said, I want to try this thing. And Madeline, of course, had done the Late Show with David Letterman and started the show with Jon Stewart, The Daily Show. And so she had that high-end experience, and she wanted to do a show. And this is about the same time that Tony is trying to experience what is it that Tony Mobley is wanting to bring to the world in his experience. So what we realized was we were going to do a show, and Tony was going to have a conversation. And for 8 episodes, 8 weeks, hundreds of people around the world got together to learn from each other, not just the technology, but also how to cook. And Shannon, you taught me so much, and how to listen and help and organize these types of events. And you brought that experience to the party, but then you also brought your cooking, your love for cooking. So Shannon, what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I have to say, yesterday I actually made one of the recipes. I made kimchi pancakes, and I was so excited. I made it for a group of friends, and so it brought back all these memories of being on the cooking show and participating and learning, and it made a difference. It was really fun. So the first thing I wanted to do was I meant to text you and Madeline saying, I made the pancakes again.
Awesome. Keenan?
So there was one thing that struck us on all of these events, and it was something that Bill Davis and I had when I was on OH Space, and he came up to me and he shook my hand, and I said, good to see you. And it was a see you in person, but we've met all of these people on all these events in Monterey and all over the place. So the comfort level of our crew, when I shook Bill Davis's hand or Roscoe or all these people, it was a good to see you, not a nice to meet you, because I met you months ago. And that was something so powerful and cool that we were just seeing everybody in 3D instead of this little box. And that was it. Thanks.
The power of the connectivity and seeing each other in real life. Hasmukh and Damayanti?
Hello, everybody. It's great seeing everyone again. It's been a long time. I think one forgets how universal food is. When Hasmukh first asked me, would you consider cooking on a show? I'm a people's person. I just couldn't fathom how this was going to work. And yet it worked so well. And I think it was such a beautiful participation from everybody. I learned, in fact, quite a bit because I was forced to sometimes think on my feet, like Bobby didn't the one day. I think they don't eat corn. And then we suddenly had to put carrots in the fritters. It was so exciting for me as well. And then, of course, I didn't imagine Alex taking part in a cooking course. So I was thrilled about that. And I can say I'm very proud of the fact that he started growing some lemongrass after the cooking show that we did with Chai. So it's been amazing. It's changed my mindset because I always thought you had to do these things in person. It was important. But of course, we couldn't have done that without Hasmukh's expertise. So because as we all know, you need so much equipment. And and I think it was great that I could partake in the show with Hasmukh, with the two of us working together. So it's been a wonderful experience and a privilege, actually.
Took us 46 years to get to that point.
We're happy you stuck with us. Shannon?
I was going to say, I really feel like everyone that was on the cooking show has been in my kitchen. And there would be no difference if, Damayanti, if you walked in my kitchen right now, I'd, give you a big hug and say, welcome back. And I feel like that I really got to meet you. And, you were on a big monitor, in front of my stove. But it really felt like you were there and you were halfway across the world.
And go ahead, Alex. Oh,
yeah, I had such a great time doing it. And I learned a lot about how to cook. And it opened my eyes to what's funny is that I really learned that I like vegetarian cooking a lot. So I was like, I don't need all that meat, and I think that, because I was learning that I could really have it be something great. And I could learn from someone from the other side of the world. And this gets back to what I was talking about, where you watch, you ask questions, and then you do. And in this case, we just started doing and asking questions and just trying to, keep one arm above the other one. But I think that there was something about, I just think it's really powerful. There's something very primal and elemental about cooking. And the fact that we were doing that over an advanced platform was really interesting to me, that we could be, having this thing that is one of the most important things we learn how to do, which is feed ourselves, and then learning how to do it in an excellent way and Damayanti is amazing. And Madeline, had an amazing show, and they were very different styles. So Madeline is, highly scripted and crazy and all this other stuff. And Damayanti's we're all doing it together, and it's well organized. And I like both of them for different reasons. But I really felt like between that, I don't know if we're going to talk about it in the future, but the Raspberry Pi, but the idea that we're all going to do things together online over Zoom, and I really felt like something was popping open, and that we're going to probably come back to, of this idea that we're all going to explore things together on, in this environment, and we're figuring it out. And I will say that I do think that we are, we're just this little seed of what's possible inside of Zoom or other things but the thing is that if you got a bunch of cooks together, it'd be very hard for the cooks to all figure out how to do this thing over Zoom. But if you get people who are interested in cooking that are in our group, we already know the media part. So I think you're going to see more communities like Office Hours springing, and maybe it's in Office Hours, but springing out from this, that are people who understand media, but then have these other interests like cooking or like rockets or like other things where it goes off and it becomes a much more, and our job in a lot of ways is to figure out how to do it and then share that so that those communities can build up around it.
But let's go to the comments to see what our community is saying.
Absolutely. Let me get my mouse over to the right place. And right now, Jason Bache is back in with watching the M1 Apple event with everyone in office hours was the first time I felt normal since COVID started. By the end of the event, I realized it was the best community I'd ever watched an Apple event with. Jesse Mills in saying, OH Space event and crew was quite exceptional. Next time, could we get a live streaming cam into space on a satellite? Put that on the list of to-dos. Peter Moore up next saying the cooking shows were awesome. For me, I was there even though I'm down in New Zealand. And Tim McCullough says it was a lesson in how to do in lots of interesting and productive ways. Plus, they got me back in my own kitchen.
Let's get into these questions.
All right. The next thing comes up from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh. What effect has the cooking shows had on the office hours trajectory?
Hasmukh and Damayanti?
I think we've covered most of it. I think it was, Alex, or in office hours, they say buy once, cry once. And that's essentially what happened, I remember Alex being on MacBreak Weekly and he's explaining the cooking show. And he's explaining, oh, that's her husband. He's using a 6K camera and he's got 2 of them. And I think they were just mesmerized that we were investing so much in the production. And I think that's a lesson learned in terms of if you do something, do it well. Also, it helped office hours with doing the Raspberry Pi. Those are the 2 things that kicked off this collaborative shows that we began to do together. I think the Mad in the Kitchen was the catalyst, and then we went into Raspberry Pi and the cooking. So I learned a lot. Damayanti learned a lot. She loves teaching, and she was very happy, if I may say so, on her behalf, teaching in office hours, the cooking.
Alex?
I think I raised my hand for both of these. So I already said my piece.
John Indelson.
Well, I have a great affection for office hours, but way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So I have to thank Guy Cochran and Sky for letting me do jambalaya. But the most important thing that happened was my wife got involved, and I was the cook on that first show, and she said, we're not going to let this happen ever again. And so she cooked for the rest of the shows. And now we have a remodeled kitchen, and there'll be more shows coming out of our kitchen. I think that's probably, I don't know about trajectory for office hours, but I sure knew the trajectory it did for me here in Monterey.
Wonderful. Carmi.
The thing for me was, I think the cooking shows really gave us the idea that we could do something completely unrelated to all the technology stuff that we've been doing. So really, up until that point, office hours would have been like, how do I figure out how to connect a microphone to my Mac? Or how do I do these things? And this was a completely different experience. And once we did that, it's like, oh, well, there are a million other completely different experiences we can do. And we can also do in this community. And we can do it in a way that we hadn't really thought about before. And I think that was the big thing. It's like we did it and it actually worked. And we figured out how to do it better. And then, as Hasmukh said, the Raspberry Pi thing and the stuff with Nick Justison and all of the other things that sort of came out of it, but started with this idea, look, we actually can really do this thing that's not just technology. That was it for me.
And Sky.
I just want to make sure to say thank you to so many people, but I am going to represent that they're going to represent a lot of people as JJ. You are a hero beyond belief to so many humans. And Mickey, you are a stellar friend and technician. And there again, you please represent so many others that have also brought in. And I want to make sure to thank Josh. If we're thanking anybody right now, this experience here is happening because of his energies. So many, many more people to thank.
Well, thank you to our second hour panelists for sharing all those stories and all of those highlights. And as we get ready to get into this next video with a surprise from the remotes.
bunch of new friends, they really are quite cool. But now I have a problem, and I don't know what to do. My credit card is maxed and my piggy bank is dry. I've had to get a second job, and here's the reason why.
In the first month of OH, the panel said I need an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the second month of OH, the panel said I need a Heil PR40
and an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the third month of OH, the panel said I need a Blackmagic 6K Heil PR40
and an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the fourth month of OH, the panel said I need a newer lighting panel.
Blackmagic 6K Heil PR40
and an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the fifth month of OH, my true love said to me,
stop buying things.
I got a newer lighting panel, Pocket 6K Heil PR40 and an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the sixth month of OH, the panel said I need an Elgato Stream Deck.
Stop buying things.
I got a newer lighting panel, Pocket 6K Heil PR40 and an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the seventh month of OH, the panel said I need an M1 Mac Mini.
Elgato Stream Deck.
Stop buying things.
I got a newer lighting panel, Pocket 6K Heil PR40 and an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the eighth month of OH, the panel said I need a mixed pre-recorder
M1 Mac Mini.
Elgato Stream Deck.
Stop buying things.
I got a newer lighting panel, Pocket 6K Heil VR40 and an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the ninth month of OH, the panel said I need a Wacom Telestrator.
mixed pre-recorder
M1 Mac Mini.
Elgato Stream Deck.
Stop buying things.
I got a newer lighting panel, Pocket 6K Heil VR40 and an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the 10th month of OH, the panel said I need a vMix 4K license. Wacom Telestrator.
mixed pre-recorder
M1 Mac Mini.
Elgato Stream Deck.
Stop buying things.
I got a newer lighting panel, Pocket 6K Heil PR40 and an A10 Mini Extreme.
In the 11th month of OH, the panel said I need a BM Deck Lake Duo vMix 4K license. Wacom Telestrator.
mixed pre-recorder
M1 Mac Mini.
Elgato Stream Deck.
Stop buying things.
I got a newer lighting panel, Pocket 6K Heil PR40 and an A10 Mini Extreme.
Wow, that's 11 months. That's almost a year, you know.
That sounds like a really good purchase. One more. Just one more, man.
In the 12th month of OH, the panel said I need to watch the Apple keynote.
Upgrade. BM Deck Link Duo.
Upgrade.
vMix 4K license.
Upgrade.
Wacom Telestrator.
Upgrade.
mixed pre-recorder
Upgrade.
M1 Mac Mini.
Upgrade.
Elgato Stream Deck.
Upgrade. Keep buying things.
I got a newer lighting panel, Pocket 6K Heil PR40 and an A10 Mini Extreme.
I'm broke.
That was absolutely awesome. Brilliant. Like, can we just give it up for the remotes? Thank you so much. And as we are now into our third panel for the celebration of 1,000 episodes, I want to welcome my new anchor, Mitchell Hill. Hey, Mitchell, how have you been enjoying this?
This has been fantastic. It's like watching the Academy Awards on steroids, but to see everybody here with great things to say, I don't think I could add anything to it other than to simply say enjoy and happy holidays.
Wonderful. And we have a special guest with us here. Well, she's been a part of the community for a long time, but Daria Musk. Daria, it is wonderful to see you. And I think you've got a treat for us, right?
We do. I'm so happy to be here with you guys with RAM. And it's been such an honor to be an honorary member of this community for a long time. We are so honored to be a part of it. And we adore Alex Lindsay and this merry band of awesome people that we get to know all over the world because of this incredible show and this amazing thing that he did. So we wanted to do a little something special for all of you, but especially for our friend Alex.
We love you, Alex.
Yeah.
You too.
Should we do it?
Sure.
Yeah. Go? Okay.
Oh, did you turn the original sound on?
I did. Here we go.
Yep.
3,
It's easier not to be wise and measure these things by your brains. I sank into Eden with you, alone in the church by and by. I'll read to you here, you can save your eyes. You'll need them, your boat is at sea. Your anchor is up, you've been swept away. And the greatest of teachers won't hesitate to leave you there by yourself, chained to fate. Yeah, I alone love you, I alone tempt you, I alone love you. Fear is not the end of this. I alone love you, I alone tempt you, I alone love. It's easier not to be great and measure these things by your eyes. We long to be here by his resolve, alone in the church by and by, to cradle the baby in space and leave you there by yourself, chained to fate. Yeah, I alone love you, I alone tempt you, I alone love you. Fear is not the end of this. I alone love you, I alone tempt you, I alone love. To get back too far, only love can save us now. All these riddles that you burn, I'll come running back to you. All these rhythms that you hide, only love could save us now. All these riddles that you burn, yeah. I alone love you, I alone tempt you, I alone love you. Fear is not the end of this. I alone love you, I alone tempt you, I alone love. I alone
who don't know, that's the band Live, and Alex has history with them. And so we asked around. We were like, what would mean a lot to him? So we hope you liked it, and we love you so much, man.
Yeah, love you.
We love you.
Thank you so much, Daria.
That was tough to follow the remote song too. Yikes! Like, sorry, that was amazing.
And look at that. Music has played so much. Music, audio, sound has played so much a part of what we do here at Office Hours. And just the community and connection is like none other. And mixing technology, music, and virtual events together, the remotes have shown us recently what they can do with it all. And I would like to welcome Victor and Brian and Greg to feel free to raise your hands and to share just the experience of the events. And actually, you know what? We'll start with you, Alex.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's so important that I was amazed at when people said they were going to put together a band, I was like, oh, we'll see how this goes. like I was like, this is going to be really hard to do well. And I was just like, but and one thing I continually happens with Office Hours is I approach things and someone says, I'm just going to do something, and I'm going to go, I don't know if that's going to work, but I'm just going to get out of the way. Like, I'm just going to let it just do its thing and just see how people, do whatever. But I've learned to trust the community in the sense that I'm just going to let people figure it out. And I was just amazed. Every single time the remotes put together a song, I went from being a little concerned in the first one of let's just see how this goes. I didn't hear it until we all heard it. And now I'm just excited. I'm just excited to see what happens next. And I think that in addition to just being really entertaining and being very impressive, there's such an incredible power to people doing stuff together. And you see this in Office Hours over and over again. The amount of work that went into this show today, the incredible amount of work that goes into the remotes, the incredible amount of work that goes into the Tony Mobley show and the Belfast method and all these other things. There's all these folks working together to make this happen. And I think it pulls us together. It pulls that group together. It pulls all of us together as we start to continually have these community projects. And it's just really inspiring for me every single day to see what people are doing.
Go ahead, Victor.
Hi, congratulations to Office Hours. I'm so happy to be here. And I think Alex is one that mentioned somewhere along the way, one day we can have a band. I'm like, yeah, I'll take that charter on. And sure enough, we just put the word out in Discord, and all of a sudden, the core members of the band, Greg, Brian, Jeffrey, Pete, I could go on. People just showed up and they just did their thing. And what the group does best is that it leverages talent to its maximum thing. Brian is a great writer and a great arranger, so let's use him for that. Jeff Francis is a wonderful bass player and has endless resources in mixing. Same thing with Pete. So, and as you can tell by that last song, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We have fun with this thing, and at first, I was kind of playing project manager and, herding cats and all that. And then I just let it go. Let this thing be what it is. And it's turned out to be an incredible experience for, I think, everybody involved. I'm so grateful to have made these new friends. Daria was kind enough to join us. I poked her right away and I said, come on over. And you guys heard the result of that in song too. So I'm very proud to be a part of this group. And the same lessons that I learned in every facet of Office Hours are just applied to different art. In this case, music, but it's the same principles. Be kind to each other, be accepting of differences. All of those things is what makes Office Hours great. And it's what makes the remotes something that we just have fun doing. Jeffrey Power is a great contributor. So thank you guys. And it's a pleasure to be here to talk about some of that.
Jeff?
So early on in the pandemic, we were all looking at ways to interact musically across the internet, and so talking about it on Office Hours, and then Victor and Andy and I got together using I think it was Jam Kazam or something like that, and tried having these in time live jams across the internet, and it was horrible, but we had a good time, and we bonded over music, and the band grew, and these are my friends. You get in a band with people and you become tight with them. And so the Office Hours community, I've got a lot of friends here, and a lot of them are in the remotes band, and someday we'll actually meet and play in person. It's going to happen
one of these days soon. Brian?
this was so unexpected. I mean, the pandemic was obviously, but then, you became a part of office hours, and I came in to learn about new ways to do media. And then all of a sudden, this thing popped up, and I had a life doing music professionally that had ended 20 years ago. And so all of a sudden, all of those things are coming back, and I'm able to do the thing that I've loved again with this group of people in an absolutely unexpected way and going in directions you would never expect. So it's just been a hoot. So much fun.
Jump in and expect the unexpected. Mitchell, what are our producers saying in the comments?
Well, the comments are extensive, and we encourage you to send them in there. We got one from Kenny Hampton and some other folks that are being added as we speak. I just want to add my own, and that is music is at the heart of what we do here. And to see so much of this great music being exemplified, it really, truly is what office hours are back. Here's some other comments. Ari Block, he says, fab. Richard Lavery says, I need a button to push that brings up Vienna saying stop buying things. Peter Moore, Daria has been a legend since the G+. Mike Edwards, amazing. And George the Tech, everything about that was fantastic. Beautiful playing and production.
All right, Mitchell, let's get into these questions.
And we do have questions, and we do like to answer them. First one from Kirsten Osterkamp in Germany. Which new possibilities, which were unthinkable before, have become possible through office hours and the remotes?
Jeffrey, you can get us started.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that were happening even before the remotes, but the idea that we were putting oil and water together to make an actual song was the big thing. We were using Zoom to go across, as was said before. We have not met each other. We've never been in a studio together, yet we all created our own parts using our own gear to bring it together, and then, of course, get it mixed down perfectly. And then, of course, using, like I said, Zoom for not only the collaboration, but also for putting some of the video segments together. There were when Daria's song that's our second song of the remotes. We were all. Bill was contacting us through Zoom. We were doing our video for there. He was telling us how to set up our lighting and stuff like that. So it's just a lot of culmination of, like I said, the oil and water to actually make something perfect.
Go ahead, Alex.
With the cooking and with the remotes, one of the things I always look at is that we're breaking new ground for a lot of people behind us. There's other people that have been doing remotes, but I have not seen anything that have done remote production, but I've not seen anything at the level that of what this team is doing, and the level of detail and the level of what's being put together remotely. And so the remotes is a perfect name, but I think that it opens up a door for a lot of other things in music of being able to how are we going to do this? And as we get better at it, and as we figure out, I get the impression when we talk about it, every song is learning from the last one. Let's not do that again. Let's make sure to do more of this. Let's do, and as we continue to refine that, I think it really provides a whole new opportunity for musicians to collaborate.
Jeff?
So it's not just what we do that you see produced. We're meeting every week or every other week in a Zoom meeting, talking through these things. We're meeting with each other outside of that to build these songs. And along the way, we throw out lots of things. I mean, Victor came in early on as sort of our leader, and he came, serve the music has always been our mantra. And it became, along the way, the only thing above that was your family first, because people have things that pop up in their lives, and there's no pressure from the rest of the group, like to meet deadlines. Deadlines can slip because other things are more important. It's got to be fun, and it's got to be creative, and it's got to serve the music. And along the way, we've gone off on various tangents. We've delved into terrible things that we threw out. We've headed down very strange lanes musically. And we've come back. And along the way, we also, someone comes into a meeting where we're going to talk about music and they're like, I have this Pro Tools problem, or I have this Zoom problem that I'm trying to work out. And all of a sudden we diverge and we're spending 45 minutes helping someone troubleshoot something, because these are our colleagues, these are our friends, these are our bandmates, these are our people. So we're going to help them out.
Go ahead, Victor.
Just in addition to that, the serendipity that comes from watching someone like Pete, mix and cut and do the vocal comping. Same thing with Brian. Same thing with Greg. Watching them do that in the background, it's just an incredible learning. When else am I going to get a chance to sit with someone, like Pete, who does this for a living, and watch what he does and watch what plugins he uses? I mean, we go deep when we do the second hour, but trust me, we go deeper as we're writing the songs. And it's a pleasure to watch these gentlemen and ladies do what they do best. And they are really a talented bunch of people.
Talented you all are. Next question.
From Yeshua in Antigua and Barbuda, asking, awesome music from the remotes. Will it be released on YouTube or other platform where I can put it on a loop?
Go ahead, Brian.
Can't hear you.
You're on mute. Yeah. I see all of that. Yes, all that excitement and responding.
I'm very excited, obviously. Yeah, we will find a home for it. We will put it out there somewhere. This got done so close to the deadline that it just made it into the back end of OH. So we'll find a home and we'll put it out somewhere. And there is a remote page for the remotes on the officehours.global website, and I'm sure it'll land there eventually.
Wonderful. Jeff.
I just want to give a public shout out to Brian for that video editing on that song. I mean, he did, arrangements, he wrote the whole intro, but the video edit was just, this is the first time, because he's been literally cutting this up to the last moment, working, I can't imagine how many hours, but boy, just amazing job. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for everything you give.
Next question.
Next question is coming in from... I don't have another question just now. Sorry about that. We're working on it.
This is a great opportunity for us to go into Super Saturday, one of the a culmination of all of these various events that we have on Office Hours.
This year, the shortest Saturday of the year brings a long day with a difference.
Super Saturday!
The 18th of December will be a day of live broadcasts from Office Hours members around the world. The day starts at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with an hour of live Q&A from Office Hours, immediately followed by the Education Hour, available only on Zoom. Then, at 11 a.m, Shannon Cooper hosts the Office Hours Cooking Show, where she, Alex Lindsay and Dennis Champion Walker cook along with Damayanti Gaja, who will be making Mexican rice. At midday, Todd Reynolds brings us a live concert from his studio in North Adams, Massachusetts. Then, at 1 p.m, we cross to the Accidental Theatre in Belfast for an hour of entertainment in The Belfast Method. And at 2 p.m, we bring you a special edition of Conversations with Tony Mobley, featuring Todd Reynolds, Hazmut Gajar and Richard Lavery. And that's your Super Saturday lineup here on Office Hours.
OH has given the community many opportunities for us to collaborate remotely. And now we're going to hear from some of those stories like the Belfast Method, the conversations with Tony Mobley, Birding with Lois, and Super Saturday. Welcome, panel. And I'm so excited to get into just the evolution of all of these OH productions. And you know what, Lois, let's start with you.
Oh, right. I would love to start. All right. I'm Lois Richter, and when everyone was starting at the beginning of the first hour and they were talking about how we got here, I never heard of Alex Lindsay before. I got here through the Zoom test kitchen because when the pandemic hit, I had to learn about Zoom, which I'd never heard of before, and then try to teach my community how to do it. And that's how I got on Office Hours. And I'm an artist. I'm a radio show host. I'm not a techie. And yet I ended up on the panel and it was wonderful. A year ago, December of 2021. I came on after hours and I said, I've been doing this slideshow for several years now here at the local Arboretum, and we can't do it in person anymore. So I'm going to do it on Zoom. Anybody have suggestions as how to, jazz it up a little bit? Next thing I know, there's probably 50 people going, yeah, we can do a birding project. And we're going to have all this different, we're going to recreate office hours, but it'll be about birds. And it was so exciting. And everything just, well, they took off with it. And I just sort of got carried along on the wave. It's now been a year. We've had the show in production since April. We've got about 10 of them archived. By the way, you can go to birdingwithlois.global to see all of those things. And here we are. It's astonishing what this community will do. So we didn't exist when Super Saturday came on, but I hope we'll be up for the next one.
Wonderful. Jim?
Sure. Yeah. So I came in to the community, as many did, looking to learn. I was going through a career change. My last gig was acquired by a public company, and so I was looking to find something new to sink my teeth into, and got the opportunity to just get involved in so many incredible events with Todd Reynolds, where I really got to spend a lot of time helping with these kind of complex shows and learning so much. But what I didn't realize was what was going to come out that would be most valuable to me, which were the friendships. And everybody is saying this over and over again. You don't think that you're going to establish a friendship, virtually, across the ponds and all over the world. And I think truly that's the greatest gift that's been given, that Alex has provided to all of us, is the facilitating the ability to make friendships far and wide, reaching all over the world. So Alex, thank you very much for that.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for letting me be on the panel today. I really appreciate every single person in this community, and I am so happy to have been able to be part of a lot of different things in this community, including, the Todd Reynolds experience and conversations with Tony Mobley. I made an attempt to be part of the remotes that fizzled a little bit. That's okay. And then I'm working a lot on the back end of the show and find that to be incredibly rewarding and fascinating and interesting. And so, yes, we say it's a tech show, but I think it might be a people show. And I, a secret. Just to know that part. And one of the first moments that I realized that was when we were working on a Raspberry Pi to set up a playout bee that Jonas was helping us with, and I saw that we did not allow anybody to not complete that project that day, and it was really, really great. And actually, Tony Mobley was working on that, and we worked together on that, and then he was also trying to get Zumo SC working, and I helped him with that. And a friendship blossomed that I was very excited about. And then at some point, and I'll let Tony talk to the beginnings of conversations with Tony Mobley more, but at some point it was like, well, we should do something. And so Tony and I don't really talk about the tech of conversations with Tony Mobley as much as we do about what we're talking about and how and the process of hosting and it's very interesting that that's tech too in some ways, is how to produce a show in a way that grows and thinking about essentially being an advocate for the audience as a host and an advocate for the audience as a producer by listening and understanding where those things go. I'm not going to keep droning on here, but thank you, Tony, for the ability to work with you on that. It has been a great pleasure. And also Todd Reynolds. I wish we were doing more work on the Todd Reynolds experience. I'm sure we will circle back. Let's do it.
And what a great segue and intro for you, Tony, to tell us more about Conversations with Tony Mobley.
So I can't, unfortunately, let me say thank you to Clarlock, my friend, but I can't start with Conversation with Tony Mobley. I have to start with office hours. And the reason I have to start with office hours is because my journey to participate in office hours was an outgrowth of helping a small congregation in Macon, Georgia, be able to continue their worship services during the beginning of the pandemic. And they were struggling to try to figure it out. And so I came into office hours ill-equipped, ill-prepared to participate. But I was welcomed by Alex Lindsay and this community. And I continued to be supported by Mike Andrews, even when I felt as though I was not worthy to participate. And as I continued to be able to help that small congregation to worship and to continue to improve, then came office hours. And so, then came Conversation with Tony Mobley. So what happened was that I was so excited about all of the wonderful things that office hours was helping me learn. We had family, there's 7 of us, 7 Mobley children. And we would have Sunday meetings and we continue to have Sunday Zoom meetings every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I would tell them over and over again all of the wonderful things that I was learning in office hours and how they should share it with their family and friends and their children and their grandchildren. And my brothers, a couple of them said, look, this is nice, but you need to be sharing this with a larger audience than just us. And so I decided that after a lot of conversation with Clarlock and Guy Cochran and Ken Jordan and so many others, that I would start Conversation with Tony Mobley. And so we started Conversation with Tony Mobley with a Zoom room, a Pile mic microphone, and I think I had, I was originally using a 2012 MacBook Pro as my computer and my camera. And that was it. And it was awful. It was terrible. It was really horrible. But growing and participating in the community, didn't have a lot of resources, but I used the resources that I had, and I kept, when I could, I would spend this and spend that. And then members of the community made the decision that at different points, they wanted to donate to me to get better. And that is really how we begin to get better. And so I am an example of how you can, I want to say I am an example of how you can take a little bit, push through, and just continue to get better, even when you don't have everything that you need. And I want to say to the community, and Alex in particular, thank you for putting up with me as I continue to try to get better. Now, I do want to say this. There are so many thank yous. There are so many people that need to be thanked in terms, and I can't name all of them. And I realized today, as I was processing everything that was going on, that it is impossible for me to thank everyone without thanking the community, because there are names that I can name, but I will leave someone out if I even attempt to try to name people. So I'm not going to try to do that. I'm just going to say, thank you, community. Thank you so much. So we have had 77 actual episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley that have been completed. We have had views of 4,000. We have had views of 50. And we have had everything in between. And I will say that the most impactful thing for me about this is that, as Alex has shared on multiple occasions, that it's not about the views as it is about the amount of time that people continue to participate in the conversation. And so that is what is so meaningful and helpful to me in terms of continuing to push along with this. And we are excited and thankful. And there are so many thanks that are needed. And I'm going to stop talking. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thank you, Todd. And thank you, Lois and Richard, for showing us what is possible with an idea and also with community. And Richard, I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, and I'll happily echo everything that Lois and Jim and Tlaloc and Tony have said, except Tony, certainly, we're not putting up with you, sir. You're coming with an amazing amount of energy to constantly be pushing forward and creating new questions and new ways for us to all think about it. So don't think about it like we're putting up with you. Though having said that, thanks for the entire community for putting up with me. So, we'll echo that as well. What's really lovely about the community events is that they are kind of the proof of the pudding of what office hours is for me. We come with questions, and then those questions lead into us thinking about, well, how can we create something out of this? How can we work together? It feels like, there were certain milestones along the office hours journey from, Alex's first call out and the first Zoom meetings into, when the Discord was set up and how that expanded the community well beyond the Zoom meeting, and then things like 2.0 and so forth, where people are, it's not as obvious, and we'll talk about this in a wee second, but the panel is one side of the show, and then there's this whole other side, this whole other community that's supporting the show. Then there's a whole other community of the audience, and how they all connect together is just wonderful. And the community events are, again, another one of those milestones. Mad in the Kitchen, inspired me about what we could do with the Belfast Method. Victor's show with Sunday Sax Jam, and how that inspired Andy and the whole creation of 2.0. All these little things have built up through the effort and the creativity and the energy of a community of people who've said, well, I've now got this tool. What can I do with it? What can I do with this hammer? What can I build? And that's such an exciting thing. The community events are such a part of that, and that's why Super Saturday last year was such a really exciting thing, because we have all these different events, and let's put that into practice in a different way. Let's kind of bring those together, these disparate parts that are part of a larger satellite. Let's bring them together and make one show. And it was a really exciting thing to start to get to work with whole other people. So we say this all the time to the whole community is, if you haven't got the time or haven't got the inclination to get involved, there's so many different ways to get involved. Whether you think that you've got skills in calling shows or no skills at all. We are a community of very, very giving, very, very open people, and that is shown every single day. Office Hours itself is the biggest of the community events, you could say, because of the way it's run in very similar ways to all the other community events. So it's just such an exciting group to continue to be a part of, because it is always something new and something different all the time.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, for the last 20 years, anybody asks me, like, how do I get better? I'm like, find some people to work with. Don't do it by yourself. It's so easy to try to, like, I'm going to get better at this, or I'm going to get better at that. And you can study a bunch of things online, and you can try to do it on your own and everything else. But there is nothing like working on a project with other people. Like, that is the fastest way to grow in anything. And especially when you take on something that's hard. There was when I was at ILM, anytime someone said, well, that's going to take a lot of time or whatever, I said, well, people would always respond, well, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So the thing is that, you want to look at hard things and then find great people. And what we've been fortunate enough to do is attract a lot of great people, and you just see these different community events, whether it's, Birding with Lois or whether it's the remotes or conversations with Tony Mobley, the Belfast Method, all these projects, then Victor, breaking new ground. I mean, literally, like almost all the music stuff all started with Victor figuring out how to get this all working remotely and just the little bits and pieces of that. And that was really the patient zero of a lot of the things that we did and or that we've done up until now and that we continue to do. And it's allowing all of us to learn vicariously. So we're all learning from what everyone else is doing, and that knowledge isn't just us talking about it, because one of the most dangerous forms of knowledge is theoretical knowledge. It's thinking that you know something that you haven't actually done. And so when we have people out there doing stuff and then coming back to us and answering our questions and giving us breakdowns of the behind the scenes, because that's what I love about these shows, is that for a lot of these shows, you can sit there behind the scenes and watch the whole show get done, and you never get to see that. You see the show, but the remotes come and they say, okay, well, here's a great song, and here's what it took to build that song, and here's what it took, and that's injecting all this knowledge back into the group that we have, and that then other people are going to get other ideas of how to do things. And then finally, this is not only the best way to learn, but it's the best way to network. The best way to build a community around that you have. That, I know who to call about that. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. I know who to go to because you worked with them. You're in the trenches with them, and that's the thing that you don't know anybody until you've done a project with them. Like, you don't really know them until you've done a project with them. That's when you start to know who's who and what they're up to.
And Daria, and to say you are part of this community, because I remember we've had some chats, and when you show up on Thursdays and share, you are part of this community.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I just wanted to jump in and say, as someone who does like pop in and out, and I'm always watching you guys from afar, I want to encourage other people who might not consider themselves like fit to be a part of like the core community. Like sometimes I'd think, I don't know if I'm techie enough or something like that. But being a part of this community and knowing I always have someone that I can lean on if there's a question that I have about something tech, about something, how do we pull off something we're wanting to do? I can always open the Discord. I can jump into after hours. I can hang out with any of you guys. And that has been so invaluable and so fun. And then to jump into the different projects. And so if anyone's watching who's been like kind of waiting on the sidelines, I just wanted to jump in and say, like, the water's warm. All these people are so sweet and so kind. And it's so much fun to be friends with all these people from all over the world. And we all have such different skills. And, whenever I've felt like a tiny bit useful, it's like always so exciting for me. So it was really fun when Josh asked me if I wanted to do something for this today. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to make Alex cry. I don't know if I got close. But yeah, it's been beautiful. And like, I, got to jam with the remotes, and I got to be on the Tony Mobley show, which I have to say was like one of the most fun interview situations we've ever had. And Tony and I know we have jokes from behind the scenes, but I just looked at my calendar because I was like, aren't I going to be back on the Tony Mobley show? And I am. So a little soft plug for Tony there. I'm going to be on the Tony Mobley show January 18th. So I'm excited to come back. But yeah, so just for all the like artists and slightly like the creatives and people who might think that they're, not quite up to par with all the tech all the time, these guys will get you up to par, which is so cool. And then if there's anything you're dreaming of doing, there's like somebody here who knows how to do it. So I just think that's really amazing. And thank you guys for building this world that we all get to come and visit. And I'm very happy to have a passport to be able to visit whenever I want. And this guy, thanks for playing with me and for being here. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. All right. We love you guys. That's all I wanted to say.
We love you too, Daria. I like that idea. Passport through office hours and just our global.
Like my visa. Yeah, I get it stamped.
Each production that we show up and support. And Mitchell, the comments, because we're getting close to that time.
Well, Liberty, they've been rolling in, and we thank all of you for making comments and saying congratulations. Certainly, Bring them. We love it. First in is Chris Clark. The remotes are the wrecking crew of the 21st century. And if you know the wrecking crew, that was the group that did most of the backings for most of the songs from the 60s. So they truly are. Al Trivet, the remotes are awesome. What a clever, delightful video. I'll be humming this the rest of the day. Shannon, Super Saturday was so much fun. Douglas Carmichael, I enjoyed the Belfast method shows. I mixed and cut. Participating in them got me through 2021. And Tim McCulloch says, Tony is a deployer of technology, but a motivator of people. Watching his growth has been especially gratifying.
Let's get into the comments, or let's get into the questions, I should say.
Questions coming in. There's Kirsten Osterkamp from Germany. What possibilities will open up when global crews across time zones are co-creating further community productions?
Richard?
Yeah, I think, there's a huge amount of possibilities, but I'll narrow in on one thing in that question, which is time zones. The thing that we haven't got to yet in our work in Belfast is exploring how to produce work in different time zones around the world and exploring that with a global crew. And that's such an interesting, exciting area, I think, for office hours, for our team, for our community, because we can create such a diverse amount of work in so many different places, all remotely, all connected through different systems. So in 2023, 2024, I think that's some of the things that I'm hoping to look at is the idea of this global crew as it hands over, the Kilo show today, you've seen how the panel has changed hour by hour, and that's a huge amount of work from the team behind the scenes. And that's so doable on so many different time zones and across so many different places. That's a really exciting aspect of having such a global crew and global community.
Halak?
Yeah, so I don't know if I understood the question perfectly, but for me, as you all know, I travel around and work in theaters all over the place, and you kind of never know where I'm going to be. I almost dressed in a Where's Waldo costume, but I thought that might have a little over the top. But I find it to be really interesting how this group and, being on Unity Comms every morning for the show has adjusted my way of being in the physical theaters. And so it's adjusted how I am on comms. It's adjusted how I think about where the limitations of the walls of the space that I'm in are. And it is also adjusted, just how present physically I need to be part of a project. And I think what I see when I see this question is the future, I think, holds a paradigm shift in the way we think about performance, in the way we think about crew and talent and skill when it comes to these buildings that I work in, these theater buildings, so that I can kind of draw in talent and skill from all over the place to this one building and kind of elevate what I'm working in at that particular moment. And that I don't know exactly how to do it, although I think I've done some of it. But I'm excited about that, and I think we're on the precipice.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Think about all the events that we're talking about now with the remotes, with Tony Mobley, with all of this. It all started in a office hours or after hours room. A whole bunch of people that never really met each other. They're going, hey, I have this idea, and somebody goes, I love that idea. Let me jump in on it, and then all of a sudden you're collaborating on something that you didn't think that you were going to do before, and then you get in a room with a whole bunch of other people that are collaborating, and you could be talking back and forth to those people, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I got this idea, and we could do this spin-off show, and then go from there. It's just amazing what's happening, just traversing the planet. Like, for instance, when I was at NAB, I learned that LucidLink, that movies like Avatar and stuff like that, they're actually being transcoded across the globe instead of one area. And it's just crazy what if you put your mind into that mindset, it's just crazy what you can figure out that you could do. And maybe somebody right now, 2 people are conspiring to start a new show in this panel right here. It's possible.
And Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that has really been pretty amazing is just really thinking about a lot of things that were a little bit of a stretch before are now just like normal. Yeah, we can just do that, and people are cutting that. And as we keep on doing more and more of these events, and as we keep on doing them, like we were doing a test and a bunch of us just got together and, I said, okay, we have this little test stage that we were using for a while. And if you look at this, so this is a test stage, this was the test stage. So what was getting mixed here, and I felt like this was a beginning of the future, is that lighting was being run by Tlaloc somewhere. I don't even know where he was, but he was running all that lighting. Like, it's all being animated, all that stuff's happening. It was all designed by him. It was put together, and he logs in and is watching it over Zoom and running this lighting. The audio is being patched and managed by Mickey in the Philippines, and then there were people that just showed up to, run the cameras, and there were other, there was a lot of, and, the networking, all this stuff was getting put together. We got to a point where we had, like, for instance, a good example here is that we had Marcia Kerrigan is, this incredible technical director that has shot tons and tons of concerts, and where people are watching behind the scenes and hearing probably one of the best people in the world do what she does, best. So we're all learning from her, and we're all doing it, and it wasn't that big of a lift. like it wasn't this huge lift because we've been getting good at it, and as we keep on getting better at doing these, the only way to get better at doing it is to do them. We're going to look back on the stuff we've done over this first couple of years and 2 years, or when we get to the 2000th show or whatever, and we're going to be doing some crazy stuff. I just know it, because I know that we keep on accelerating and we keep on, attracting folks. But I think that the idea that what seemed impossible or crazy 2 years ago is now kind of run of the mill. And that stage that you saw there, that was inspired by the Belfast method with working with Richard, which was inspired by Victor trying to figure out how someone could run his shows remotely. So you can see that progression of, someone trying to figure something out, and then someone else taking it a little bit further, and then we have a stage. And I think that those are the kind of things that are going to keep on happening as we just keep scaling up. One person's going to start scratching at something, and then people are going to, well, let me bring another hammer to that, or another pick, and we'll start cutting through it. And before you know it, we're doing something pretty big. And I think that you're going to see that happen over and over again, and it's going to keep on happening at a larger scale constantly over the next couple of years.
And Tony.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, houses of worship, this is a way in which you can remove the walls and you can share your worship experience throughout the world. It doesn't matter what size you are. It matters the matter is, what do you want to do and how you want to share it? And this is a great way to do it. Spoken artists, musicians, artisans of any type, this is going to be a way that you can have that small club experience, but have a larger audience. That's where we're going.
Thank you, Tony. And as we now get into taking a look at the behind the scenes of Office Hours, how did we even get to 1,000 episodes, celebrating the people who make this happen daily? And I'd like to bring Richard Lavery and Tlaloc Lopez Waterman to talk to us about how is this even possible? Go ahead, Richard.
Oh, okay. I'll go first. Sure. Tlaloc and I we have a brief chat about what we might have a look at today. So we've got a huge amount of people that we want to thank, including some unsung heroes who have kind of gone, who've been such a part of the crew and contributed in such a great way that we want to just kind of try and give a mention out. But as Tony says, as soon as you start mentioning people, there's always someone that you can't quite list because it's a very, very long list, because it's such a fantastic team that have been building this over the years. So we have a couple of images that from the behind the scenes. I don't know, Tlaloc, do you want to have a look at those, or shall we just riff for a wee while first?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can take a look at those images, but I do want to jump in and say, there are a bunch of people that work on this. Some of them daily, some of them off and on, others just right when it's needed. Like, oh, we don't know how to do this one thing, and they just come in and help. It is really, really incredible. And the way, there was a theme in this hour. I don't know if you noticed it, but that this is a scaffolding mentality. Like, you do one thing, and then it gets built on, and it gets built on, it gets built on, it gets built on. And that, I just realized that happens in this case too. We have one of our most cherished unsung heroes, I think, is Juan Robles. And he is an incredible programmer. And I learned that because I needed some help with some Python. Python. This little script that I use for my work for lighting design. And I was trying to make it grow a little bit and have it do a couple extra things, and I didn't know what I was doing. And he took an hour with me and broke it apart down to the little building blocks, and then built it back up for me. I had to really pull my Spanish out of the closet, but it worked. And I was just blown away by his thinking process. How does he think about something? And he thinks about something by building it up from the beginning and understanding how every part of it works. And then that way he can have this larger sense of it. And I want to just say right now that may not make sense, but I appreciate that thought process so much, and it's taught me so much. And we thank you, Juan. So maybe we can show some images of what the patch looks like today. that Juan has done some major rework on. And one of the things that he did is he looked at the way the information was coming from Zoom ISO and from Mukana, and made that the combination of those bits of data to be more robust, so that there was a way for, at any given moment, the patch to know which panelists were there, what their names were from Mukana, and the process of re-syncing that data when things change sped up a lot. I think there's more speed in our future, but these are the building blocks, and these are the bits and pieces of the scaffolding that we work with. So thank you all very much. And we're going to talk about more unsung heroes, but I wanted to start with Juan because he's also working on the app, the Office Hours app, which I think people will enjoy very soon as well. Yeah. So, any thoughts, Richard?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the complexity of this, just this is if anyone's ever used Isidore, this is all based on one stage, isn't that right, Tlaloc? So this is all happening, on one stage within for Isidore, it's meant to be used in kind of scenes. So this is creating one scene that does all of the work. So what's kind of coming into this, if you want to give people a bit more information.
Yeah. So the Zoom ISO sends in who's in the meeting, and whether they have their camera on, and whether they have their and what their Zoom name is, which is why we put Zoom names in, and we give them a pin, which then is linked to all the information that's coming in from Mukana, and Mukana has those pins as well, and then we can combine that, and when people raise their hands on in the show, we know how to build out the super source that is then outputting. So now the Isidore patch is going to output OSC to Mix Effect, which is built by Adam Tao, which is another one of our unsung or maybe sometimes sung heroes that we really, really, really appreciate. That it then talks to the constellation switcher and builds those super sources or makes those cuts or does all that thing. So all this data from universe is coming in from Mukana from Mukana from Zoom ISO, and then small little packets of control requests are going out to Mix Effect, and then Mix Effect is controlling the constellation. So, and then you can also have a control surface on the on Isadora, so an EIC can actually just work on that directly. But what the goal is to have all of these control buttons be in universe, so that people the world over can do the various jobs needed to build to run the show.
Yeah, so Juan and Jonas and Talalok and the Andy before them, using Sumo SC, using then Zoom ISO, all of that has to be tested. All of it has to be tested in an environment that is really similar to office hours, which is actually much harder than you would think. So there's so many different hours that go into running tests in the background, running tests in after hours, running tests in practice meetings, and then all of this is on a daily basis set up by JJ in the back end, and then controlled by a huge list of TDs. Michael Smith is one of our most regular TDs, and Andre and Kirsten and Alan Scott. And then Peter, who's just started training on Saturdays. It's a huge team. And then Dennis, really early, who's one of our other unsung heroes. Dennis, very early on, was one who suggested we would need someone to actually manage the question system. So this is one of those, again, milestones in office hours where in the back end, the question system used to be run by the host. And now there's an entire role where someone every single day is moving the questions, moving them in. And that role is going to evolve into new and interesting things over the next year. And then we've got our engineer control, we've got our TD who's cutting the show, we've got our question manager, we've now got pre-show coordinators who are in with the fantastic ones today with the team, and Greg and Brandon and everyone who's helping us come in and mic check before everyone goes onto the panel, moving people onto stage, all this kind of stuff that's happening in the background. And then there's just a huge amount of different people in different roles in different ways. They're all intersecting at the same time. The brilliant Chad, who's been in our ears today and on the panel, constantly updating us, who's been, again, one of those unsung heroes who's been there on a daily basis with us to experiment and to keep everything running smoothly. And of course, Mickey, who's always as people mentioned at the beginning, who seems to be always there. We don't know how. There might be two of them.
We literally have conversations like, when does Mickey actually asleep? He goes, do you think Mickey's up? I think he is, because he's always up. Like, we don't know. We just don't know. I get on after hours and I go, Mickey, are you there?
And then he responds like, I'm here.
Yes.
Jason.
The only thing to me more impressive than the technical acumen is that it is the result of so many people working together who are only doing this because they love it, not because they're getting paid for it, but because it is truly a passion. People talk about passion, but this is, what you're seeing is the sum total of what a whole bunch of people thought up and then, have just managed to materialize. And it just blows my mind.
Alex?
Someone asks, they're like, you're doing this all the time. What are your other hobbies? I'm like, this is my hobby. like this is what I do. But the thing what I think is really interesting when you talk about that pathway of all those different companies. So you have Universe, and then you have Isadora, and then you have Mix Effect, and then you have the Black Magic, and then you have all the different things that are being tied together that are making this work. And it's not just our team working on it; it's all of those teams. So Isadora is the Trichotronics is making things better. Universe is fixing things. Mix Effect Pro is fixing things, and we push most of the software harder than almost anybody else does, at least in our area, in the area of broadcast. And all these teams, all the way up to Zoom and because all this is coming out of Zoom, and we're getting new things and putting things together. And I don't know if we're creating those things, but we're definitely influencing them. And we're pushing the envelope, and we are preparing the world for a future that hasn't arrived yet. And that is. Usually people are building stuff for something in the past, like, okay, I saw this and we need this thing. We know that digital events and digital first events are the future. Like, this is the big game, and this is, and we're in this ground level of it. And I think that, like Xerox PARC, like, Crystal, I think it was Crystal Dynamics or whatever, like all of these companies, a whole bunch of companies and a whole bunch of ideas and a whole bunch of production styles are all going to be, flowing out of office hours over the next couple of years, because we're figuring something out that we know is coming. It's just that the world isn't, and we're seeing it getting picked up here and there. Like, people were really excited about hybrids after COVID ended. And now they're becoming, when I talk to people over and over again, they're becoming less excited about them. They're like, well, this is really hard. It doesn't really work. So all of that stuff is coming towards what we're working on. So we're building this smooth solution that isn't needed every day yet, but we will within the next 2 years. You're going to see a huge explosion, and all this work that we've been doing together is going to benefit a lot of us.
Richard?
Yeah, I think, I don't know how many feature and bug requests we've sent in to Zoom, Universe, Mix Effect, and Isadora combined, but it's quite a lot. I think when we met the Universe guys at IBC, and Elle has said this from Isadora, that when they see the patches that we've built for the show, they've never seen something so complex built into their system. I think Talalok, didn't Adam say that we're pushing Mix Effect harder than anyone else in the world? So it's absolutely amazing. Just the sandbox again that we get to play with, the community that's built up to do that, and it's been such an exciting time.
And Talak.
Yeah, I think there were some really interesting moments where I asked Adam, for an extra feature regarding feedback, and he was like, "Well, why do you need that?" And I said, "Well, I mean, I can go into the details," and I started listing them out and da da da. And he's like, "All right, let me work on it." and then, over time, it turned into one thing, and then it shifted into another thing and another thing. And I just can't thank those business leaders that have gone out on the edge to help us out and to work with us on this. And the other thing about it is that, yeah, you're right. He said no one is doing this. No one else is doing this. And then when I sent the patch into Isadora to look at something, they were like, "Whoa." So it's just intense. And then, but I do also want to say, there are people who have come and gone out of the process and come back, and that includes people like Mike Emmett, who helped us with a style guide for the graphics, there were a bunch of people. Aaron Husledge was helping us with graphics, and then he got busy, and that's fine. It's great for you to come in and work on some stuff and then phase out and phase back in, and please do, and feel free to, and feel, I think it's really cool to come in and get something big out of it for yourself and put something back into the community and then shift back out and shift back in. So we welcome everybody to come take a look.
And Richard, you wanted to wrap on this?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's impossible to mention everyone, but again, we've got our QM team, Laura and Dave, Dave's also on the education side, who have been part of that role for I think Laura's been part of that role from the beginning, and then has grown that role as part of all the kind of the NAM and the Cinegear, and she's now running the QM teams for IBC and other shows and so forth. So it's just what's worth just mentioning is that this is all of a team of volunteers. There's a volunteer sign-up sheet that Josh and the team sent out every single day. You can join in and be part of that team. We're always wanting new community members to be involved and to get involved behind the scenes, because you will start to see just how this whole sausage is made and how tasty it is.
Thank you to our third hour panel for sharing the past, the present, and where office hours will be going, the technical side of things. And Mitchell, thank you for coming in on the third hour and anchoring with me. How's it been for you as we close out?
Well, it's been wonderful working with you, Liberty. Thank you so much for saying that. And not everybody could be here, and that's just something you just have to be aware of. But here's the thing: watch this space, because we're making history here every single day. And I'd like to jump into a time machine and see what happens after 1,000 more episodes. It's going to be an amazing thing to see.
Yeah, and it looks like the Kilo show, the 2000 show, will be September 14th, 2025. So mark your calendars. Meet us back here for the next 1,000
It's going to be
episodes.
global. We're going to have sets all over the place. Now we're jumping to Amsterdam. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And Alex, I want to say thank you too. And these 3 hours, and the party doesn't stop here, because we're going to hop into after hours as we close out. But just thank you, because even preparing for today, I messaged you. I'm like, Alex, any tips, today? He's like, just be yourself. And I'm like, spoken like Alex. And just the opportunity to serve the community and teaching and hosting in the labs. And just thank you so much. And for the people, lots of the women behind the scenes as well, those who are no longer here, but they're watching. I see you, and thank you so much. And in the production team. And as we get ready to go to the meetups, because actually getting a chance to see everyone in person is always great as well. Again, producers, thank you for all your questions, your comments, our back-end team. Thank you, for without which this would not be possible. And happy Kilo Day, happy 1,000 episodes, office hours. And here we go to the meetups.
And I just want to thank everybody as well while we're doing that, while we're going to the meetups, just everyone playing. And I just want to thank everybody for playing so hard. It's just, it's everyone here is such a inspiration to me every single day. The teams that build that I didn't expect, the people taking this on, people picking up the slack every time there's a little bit of slack, somebody's picking it up and making it happen. And I think that I feel very fortunate that I started the fire, but that was about it. I think that this is one of the coolest things I've ever worked on. And I just am just amazed that I have such an incredible community that I get to be connected to. And I'm just humbled by the quality of people that have come, both in expertise and just the quality of who they are, and I think that it makes it so much fun. And I just want to thank everyone for just contributing, being part of it, asking questions, answering questions, working on projects. There's just so much that everyone's working on every day. And I can't even describe it when I talk to people. I'm just it's just this amazing online community, and I hold it very dear. It's why I'm here every day, because I know how important this is to me, and I know how important it is to a lot of other folks, and I know that we're just doing some pretty incredible things. And so just I just want to thank everyone for this incredible effort that has made this worth it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. That was pretty good.
Hey, can we do it again? Can we do it again?
Tomorrow.
May 2nd, 2024 is Kilo Point 5.
We should do a show like this tomorrow. I mean, not like this, but we should do a show where we all get together and we'll answer questions and we'll talk about things.
That's impossible. That can't be done.
Great idea.
I think we can do it. And we won't. It'll just be 2 hours.
It's too expensive.
Just about general questions.
It's too expensive.
I think we can. I think we should think about doing these daily.
Brian's gonna bring his kazoo.
That's a good idea.
But bandwidth is so expensive.
Bye bye.
This wouldn't exist.
Thanks, Josh Kaufman.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Liberty. Thank you, Mitch.